Asia is no longer at the meeting. Regarding public comment, I have a note to read first. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items not related to a public hearing or council action item for the council. The intent is to provide information that is pertinent to the city's jurisdiction. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes to address the council as one body, not to individuals. Council may consider items brought up during this time later in our agenda during matters from mayor, council, and staff. This meeting will proceed in an effective and courteous manner. Citizens and council members will be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free from slander, threats, or other personal attacks. Signs or placards, outbursts of applause, campaigning for public office, or other disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. If you have a question regarding any government service or current city policy, please contact the city manager's office in an attempt to resolve the matter. All right, that said, Mike Pelfrey.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and all those wonderful folks out there that are citizens of our wonderful city. So my comment is going to discuss, I actually had a question. I wanted to know if we as a city have moved our Office of Tourism above I-5 as you come into town from north. Have you noticed the new office, the tourism office? I'm making light. It's not an office. It's a tent with garbage all over the hill. Now, I don't know if that's in the city of Grants Pass, but I can tell you that it looks like it. And if you've driven down some of the streets, I'm seeing tents and ditches. And then, you know, I make note that you guys opened this meeting talking about Arbor Day and all the trees that we lost with fires. Do you know how many fires are started by transients? Just Google it. You'll see what I'm talking about. We had a bad fire a few years ago up in Canyonville, and you do guys realize that that was a transient that just had a campfire and just let it go. And then we spent millions and millions of dollars, of taxpayer dollars, and I can't even imagine if you, and I have nothing against homeless people, don't get me wrong, but we've got to find a solution to manage it, because this city, in my opinion, is important. Tourism is very important here, correct? And if that's correct, can you imagine the people getting on these wonderful jet boats this summer and looking out and seeing all the tents and all the garbage? Is that what we want in our town? I don't. And so I just, you know, and what's really sad is my grandson came out to visit. He's on spring break. We just took him to Bend to ski. We come back, and he mentions to me, he says, "Pappy, I've never seen so many tents." Now, keep in mind, we drove through Medford, so we all know what kind of nightmare that is. But I don't want Grants Pass to be Medford. Have you guys gotten off the exit down there at Crater Lake recently? Do you see how bad it is there? Now, you can't tell me that we can't figure out some form of solution. Do you know how many empty buildings are sitting around Grants Pass that are unoccupied? And I could go on another tangent. We've got my wife over in, we live near Reinhardt Park. There's an 83-year-old man living in his truck, but he's a veteran of our country. And yet we have people like that sleeping in a vehicle, and we have millions of immigrants, or I should say thousands of immigrants that are coming into our country, and our government doesn't have a problem putting them up with housing, shipping them to places like Houston and other places. But yet we've got people that are sleeping on the street in our city. We've got to clean this town up, guys. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I will note to the speakers, please leave the room after you're done speaking, because we do have people outside waiting to come in. Next up, Stephen Nelson, followed by Mark Gatlin.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I didn't know it was Arbor Month, so it's only fitting that I tell you this story. Recently at the fairgrounds, a tree, a conifer, well over 150 years old, was taken down, destroyed, and I have no idea why that happened. Beautiful tree, healthy tree. I have lost my respect for Travis Boersma. I don't know who the engineer of that project is, but they could have developed around that tree. I commend DJ for saving the old conifer on Sand Creek in the Sand Creek Estates. He did the right thing. But whoever approved the removal of that old tree at the fairgrounds should have had the backbone to stand up against Boersma and the engineer of that project. That is ridiculous. We're losing too many canopy trees in this city to greed. So this has to change. I'm appalled by it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Gatlin. Is Mark here? And I will note for the rest of you, I know that you haven't all filled out blue cards, and we're just going to have people come up, form a line after we do these three. So is there somebody ready to go? Please come forward. Tell us your name.
Mark is here.
Okay. Well, go ahead and come forward, and we'll have him go next since he's not in the room. Please state your name.
My name is Jeff Moore. I've lived in this lovely city for just over 32 years. I was here last time 3 months ago when this popped up. I went over and I said I've moved multiple businesses in this town, and what I just found out in the last hour just appalls me. When this ordinance was pushed through many years ago, this is regarding the adult use ordinance. When this was pushed through many years ago, I had 2 businesses across the street from it, and for the most part, I agreed with it. In a little hindsight now, I wish that there would have been a little bit more, but we all know the shenanigans that went down to put that thing into place, and the efforts that the city took to be sure that Larry Lacey would not open a strip club. And what I've just found out in the last hour is that I've got a young guy here named Sean. He's got an established business in town, great little bar, great little brewery, like the guy, just a great citizen. He wants to move his business 4 blocks away. And he's running into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And now I hear it needs to go to urban planning. I thought we were here 3 months ago, and everybody basically decided, except for 2 dissenting votes, that this was going to be something that was going to be addressed and move forward. I was here, I spoke, I watched the whole bloody thing. And here we are again, learning about more shenanigans. That's not right, people. This is a guy who just wants to open up a restaurant with a lounge downtown and have his brewery in there, and you've scared him away. He can't survive this. He can't survive another 4 months of shenanigans from the city council or urban planning or whomever this needs to go to get the thumbs up. This is a guy who's thrown every single sweat, blood, and tears into this business, and it's gone. Because he's been working his butt off in there for a better part of 4 months now. Refinished it, the floors, it looks amazing. That building's been vacant for years. And before that, it was sketchy at that. It appalls me. It really does that we've reached this point. I haven't heard the actual announcement, but I heard Carl on KJO the other day address everybody and say, you need to send emails in. You guys got the flood of emails, and now it's moved to urban planning. This has all happened within a very short amount of time, and this really is wrong. This is wrong, in 96, I think it was, when the shenanigans happened. It's wrong now. Come on. And be sure those people who are voicing live in this city, pay the taxes, are your constituents. Else, if we're not. I'm stunned to learn that my friend is not going to even, he may not even survive this or even try in Grants Pass. So now you have a 10,000 square foot building. It's going to be vacant for a lot longer. So blessings, and apparently money
Thank
does
you. Your
actually
time is
buy.
up. Mark Gatlin?
Can I take this off?
No.
No. Don't you do it.
Thank you.
I have Bell's palsy, so I've come down with a situation where I can't speak articulately as well as I used to. Half my face is paralyzed, so I usually stick my finger up there. It's not pretty, but it's effective. I have copies of my speech tonight I'd like to submit to you guys.
You can hand it to Aaron
And
right there on
ladies.
your side, the city manager.
Thank you very much. I know you. I'd like to thank the City Council and the staff for this time to allow us to speak on behalf of situations and policies that are important to us. I would like to voice my strong opposition. I'm going to stick my finger in my mouth here and hold my mask up. To voice my strong opposition to your considering the repeal of the adult use ordinance that has worked very well to date in protecting our children and families from certain folks that frequent adult establishments. Now, not all adults are problematic, but certain individuals are, and they are, as law enforcement calls them, frequent flyers to the justice system and our jail. I remember when this ordinance was drafted, around that time, Larry Lacy, convicted drug dealer and strip club owner, wanted to, as he told me personally, poke his thumb in the eye of the city fathers by opening a strip club downtown that was near a park, which was a favorite to homeless children sheltered at the Gospel Rescue Mission across the street from the park. People like Mr. Lacy will always exist in our society, and it's up to you, our elected city councilors, to see that our children and citizens at large have a safe and secure place to worship and to play. I believe that a better plan than to repeal this ordinance would be to treat it like our sign ordinance, and on a case-by-case basis, allow a variance with additional conditions that if the business owner wants to operate, then they have a requirement to maintain order directly outside their business by denying service to troublemakers. To me, this would determine good faith on the business's part and would, in my mind, protect the neighborhood in which they do business in. I would like to thank you all very much for your service to our community and to our citizens. And Mr. Pell, welcome back, sir. I wish you Godspeed and good luck. Good to see you, and thank you.
Thank you, Mark. For the next people, if anyone in the room is here to speak, please just stand up, come forward, state your name.
My name is Marlia Barnes, and I'm a newer citizen to Grants Pass, but I own a home over by Reinhardt Park area, paying taxes, all the good things. And thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm here as someone who has gone through living in an area which had no ban on adult establishments coming to town. I lived in Lake Oswego in Clackamas County, which bordered, I was in the far west end of Lake Oswego, I'll say, and it bordered Tualatin in Washington County. Pull it down. Can you hear me now? Okay. There was an old chalet restaurant that was close to that border and close to my neighborhood in Tualatin. I was on the border. I was in Lake Oswego. It was in Tualatin, but just over the tracks. A company named Stars wanted to bring a strip club to that location. Of course, many citizens, including the Tualatin City Council, was opposed. So we packed a city hall meeting room where everyone other than the representative of Stars and his attorney were against nude dancing coming to our town. When we left, we were feeling empowered with the number of citizens who showed up and the city council member who volunteered to help Stars realize they were not welcome. We all felt this couldn't possibly happen, not in our neighborhood. We launched a campaign in the press and to our neighbors. No one was in favor of this business. This was a family-friendly town, and it needed to be protected. We never expected that our collective voices would not make a difference. Tualatin did not have an adult ban in place to discourage this type of business. We flooded the OLCC with calls to not issue a liquor license. No way could this happen in our backyards, but it did. In the end, even after meetings in Salem with state attorneys, Stars was given an okay to open their business and a liquor license. We were told that the First Amendment's freedom of expression protected dancing in this way. We had no ban in place. We had nothing we could do. And Stars had other establishments in Oregon, one in Bend, one in Salem, one in downtown Beaverton, which eventually closed due to prostitution and underage workers. And I think it may have actually been demolished. It was shuttered. But the rest of them are still open. You don't think it could happen here, but it could. We don't want it to be too late to protect our city. If there's no adult ban, there is nothing to protect us from an adult business that we don't want here, that we don't want to see or walk by or have our children walk by. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Don Hendricks. I'm a property owner and a business owner on G Street. We own the property of 201 and 211 Southwest G Street. And before I begin, I want to let you guys know that I'm conflicted mainly because it's my understanding that the person that has brought this up and wants to relocate his place of business is offering to serve food. So it's my understanding in this situation, if you're going to serve alcohol, as long as you have food to accommodate it, it's family friendly. So that's just kind of an introduction here. I own Don's Bike Center on G Street. I've been located there for close to 25 years. And I personally lived through the Larry Lacey experience. I am in exactly the same building that he was attempting to put his strip club in. I've seen the ramifications of it, both in terms of the safety issues of the building and also the safety and family issues related to what he was trying to do. So that, as an introduction, I'm opposed to making the change. It's not logical to me. The current ordinance is working to benefit a quote-unquote family-friendly downtown, and the system is not broken. By keeping with the current ordinance, the downtown restaurants and merchants are thriving. We have a safe, family-friendly environment, and it's working for both locals and for tourists who visit our downtown. In our experience in our 25 years, there's been a number of great things that have happened downtown with the ordinance in place, especially on G Street where we are located. And bullet point items are First Friday, Back to the 50s and the Misfits Car Show, the Christmas Plaza, which by the way is on the corner where our building is, Christmas Plaza with the Christmas tree. I refer to an article put out by the Daily Courier a couple of months ago referring to, it's called A Block Full of History and Historical Buildings. It's very interesting. It's an interesting read, and it illustrates over the decades or the century how businesses have changed from what they were and were thriving, and we don't want to step back to those old times. We also have the Grants Pass Art Museum. We have baby shops, candy stores, and clothing stores, indoor soccer facility, and various health and vitamin stores. There were bad things that were happening in the early days of Don's Bike Center, and as things have progressed and changed, and restaurants have brought in, and bars have vacated, things have improved. So my concern is that if we change it, it goes the wrong way, we'll have a loss of family safety, we'll have an excessive number of drinking establishments and so on. I'm going to finalize, if you'll give me another 30 seconds.
I'm sorry,
Our mission statement when we opened.
I'm sorry, I can't allow
We
you
can't
to
do
do
this.
that. We have
Okay.
too many people to speak tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We tried.
It was a nice thought. Please tell us your name.
My name is H.R. Tyler. Just a little background, I'm a retired police chief. I've worked in cities in Oregon. I've worked for 3 cities. I was a chaplain for the Redding City Police Department. And so my background is that I have exposure to these kinds of changes. My question to this council would be, why do you want to change the ordinance? The individual involved with his business can maintain his business, he can expand his business, he can move to an area where it's permissible. So it seems to me that this is only a revenue question, rather than a question of whether or not it's good for the community. The primary basis for our community growth is our young people, those that are coming into the future that will take our seats in our places. We provide them with an environment that is less than top quality. Our nation and our communities have been moving backwards to some degree with regards to its stand and its approval or its hope to development for our young people, and I believe this is a step backwards. I'm a parent. I have children. I have 33 grandchildren, and they are mostly in this area. And I would hope this council would take a sharp look and say, is this change for the better or for an individual need or for the best for the community? I leave it to you. I compliment you for taking this position, having served in the public eye. I know what it is to take your battle position sometimes against the general public. So I encourage you to evaluate this decision based on what's good for the community, not for an individual, but for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Please tell us your name.
My name is Brad Pichelle. I've lived in Grants Pass for 29 years. And I came when I was distressed to hear about your decision to want to stop this ordinance from being in place. And I thought of the late, great Brady Adams and all that he did. He dedicated years of his life to creating a Grants Pass that we all know and love, one that's wholesome. And the Christmas murals at Christmas time and the bears in the summertime. Tourists come off the freeway to see those bears. They're wholesome bears, friendly bears, fuzzy bears, approachable bears. But if this council were to have its way and we repeal this ordinance, I can see a whole new Grants Pass being advertised for what you guys want to see happen. I would propose you want to see bears shooting up drugs outside of one of the local drug parlors. Another bear with a beer in his hand saying, "Drink at our local brew pubs, man, isn't it great?" Another bear out at the new Racino going to be taking place. A bear playing a slot machine. A bear playing with the horse betting sheet. And in honor of Larry Lacey at 5th and G Street, we'll have a bear with a pole dancing. This is not something that the community wants to see. We were outraged 25 years ago when this happened, and we're outraged now. That's why there's an army of people out there to speak to you. Do not let this happen on your watch. Thank you.
Please come forward and tell us your name.
Julia Hendricks, 1335 Northwest Prospect Avenue. I'm here to speak on the adult use ordinance that you're considering. I'd like to clarify because this ordinance did not come into play, was not voted in during the Lori Lacey incidents of 2006. That ordinance has been in place for much longer than that. What happened is the city council got together and put a park in a location so Larry Lacey couldn't continue to open his business. The ordinance was existing. They just placed the park within 1,000 feet so he couldn't have a strip club. But this is a reoccurring issue. It was just a year ago I sat in another meeting and I've spoken now twice before as a business owner and a citizen of Grants Pass against this issue. So it's a reoccurring issue. And it's unfortunate. I love to see new businesses come to this town, but you don't govern OLCC rulings, and the OLCC rulings determine what an adult business is. You have a ruling that says we're not going to have adult businesses within a certain proximity of children and locations where children are, and we're not going to have adult businesses too close to each other. And I think that's a good ordinance. The fight, they want you to change your rules so it makes it easier for them, when really what they should be addressing is OLCC rulings that make them an adult business because they don't want to serve food. It's an easily solved problem if you serve food. You're not an adult business. So I think a lot of these issues that keep coming up is with business owners that don't want to play by the OLCC rulings and want to make it an issue with Grants Pass, in their locations and where they want to have their business. The other thing I want to bring up is that I've heard that the city council has looked at other communities that have these, that don't have adult business ordinances. And I would say to you, if you're looking at that, are you looking at all the demographics? Are the cities that don't have this, do they not have a sobering center? Do they have the same demographics with adult businesses and all the social issues that we have here with homelessness and sobering centers? Because if you're going to look at what other people are doing, you need to have the same information and match that and have the same community issues that we have, because we have community issues that constitute us not wanting to have an adult business in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward and state your name. Whoever's next.
My name's James Wilson. I first came to this area in the late 60s. I've worked with many different churches, and I'm employed as a chaplain today. And I'm just coming to say we don't need to change this rule. I work with so many people who are battling one addiction or another, and many of them started when they were teenagers and got the influence of something that they thought looked cool, and they've been battling it for years, trying to get away from it. The more fences that we put up to stop businesses coming in that feed on people's addictions, the better the people of this community will be. And there's a lot of expense that goes into dealing with these addictions. There's a lot of tears that go into dealing with these addictions. People who are addicts don't want to be addicts. They don't want to be addicted, whether it's gambling or porn or drinking or drugs or whatever it is. That's slavery. And so I am against making this slavery an easier step for people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, please tell us your name.
I'm Carol Willison, Jamie's wife, and it just really concerns me that there would be a change to lessen the restrictions, because we have 4 teenage children, grandchildren, excuse me, and it just breaks my heart to know what they would do, that there'd be such a change.
Ma'am, could you put the microphone down so we can hear you?
Oh. I'm just concerned about the entertainment that would be taking place, the change. It's just now so appalling, the things that children are subjected to, and it just is very concerning to me.
Thank you. Whoever's next, please step up and tell us your name.
Stephen Nelson, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll just read my letter. One evening on a busy sidewalk in the city of Tijuana, Mexico, I observed 2 Americans, intoxicated men, holding each other up as they attempted to make their way along that sidewalk. They were passing by an adult business as the owner stood at the entrance, making a hand gesture, intending to get them inside, which he did. The 2 made an abrupt U-turn, and they were then taken away into that dark environment to pay to see women being the objects of voyeurism. I believe in having respect for women. The adult business environment is not about giving respect, but rather only about gratifying those who pay to be there. Therefore, I have these questions for the council. Why is there a willingness to facilitate adult businesses to sell voyeurism? And mark my words, allowing one such business will bring more of the same. 2, how would the city be affected socially, morally, and spiritually by amending this ordinance? If one were to make the argument that a comparison cannot be made of Tijuana to what is being proposed for the city of Grants Pass, then my response would be this: there can be adverse changes socially, morally, and spiritually anywhere adult businesses are allowed to operate, as the environment of voyeuristic dancing only degrades the dancers and might even bring the worst of human nature out of others. One only needs to research sexual violence to understand. If women would know their true value and never go into this environment, and if only those who pay to view would also know this. Lastly, business taxes would be coming out of an immoral environment, and knowing this, the council should be opposed to amending this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Please state your name for us.
Hi there, I'm Frank Morin. Happy to be here to get a chance to talk with you tonight. I'm a local resident, homeowner, business owner here in town. I just recently heard just today about the plan to change possibly change the current ordinance on limiting adult businesses. And I have to admit I was shocked to hear that that was being considered. I was on the budget committee here a few years ago when there was another attempt by someone renovating the hotel to get that ordinance changed, and that was shot down. I thought that was appropriate. So my question, I guess, is why on earth would we want to change an ordinance that's been protecting our downtown and keeping it so wholesome? We're already allowing a big gambling facility on the other side of the river, so why would we want to bring adult businesses into the downtown with all of the potential negative ramifications that goes with that? I'm a parent, and I really like the wholesome downtown we have. It's not perfect, but it's good in a lot of ways, and I think it would be a horrible mistake to change an ordinance that's currently protecting our downtown so well. So please reconsider that idea and don't make such a foolish mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Step right up. Tell us your name, please.
Hi, I'm Jenny Morin, and I really am going to also ask you to reconsider and vote against the adult use ordinance, because I think that allowing adult businesses in the downtown area would be very dangerous for our youth, because pornography is already destroying the youth of our city and our nation. Not only that, but there are many adults that are addicted to pornography. And let's not make it any easier for our youth to become corrupted by this material. Like, as one of the other speakers said, it degrades women, and it is a horrible trade. I think that allowing the adult use ordinance will send the wrong message to our youth, and I believe that it will draw sexual predators to the downtown area, which is now a safe area for children to walk around. And I do believe that it will make it unsafe for our youth to walk around in the downtown area if this is passed. As a parent, I am very concerned. I have a 16-year-old son, still left at home. We raised 4 children here. We love Grants Pass because it is a wholesome community. I also believe that it will hurt the economy of the downtown to allow this ordinance to pass, because some businesses will leave downtown as a result of this passing. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please
Thank
state
you.
your name.
Michael. And I'm a resident here in Grants Pass and a taxpayer here in Grants Pass. And I think we're conflating 2 different issues here. And You know, I've heard some of these speakers respectfully, you know, talk about the strip clubs and about pornography. I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly, though. I agree. However, we're doing a disservice to, you know, people that are opening their own business, their own brew pubs, their own, you know, maybe wine tasting. That's such a vital part of the Southern Oregon economy. We're not talking about opening a new marijuana store. We're talking about opening a brew pub, you know, and brew pubs bring a lot of great vitality and a lot of great business to Southern Oregon and Grants Pass. And there are many positive brew pubs and restaurants in Grants Pass. And Sean's business, I feel, would be an amazing business in the downtown core. We've got an empty building doing nothing and looking completely haggard and ragged. And he's done blood, sweat, and tears to get it operating and to have a place to go for not only a new brew pub and restaurant, but for a gathering place, a positive gathering place. It's already been a Grants Pass fixture. And someone earlier said that, well, go somewhere else. Guess what? There's nowhere else to go. We all know how hard it is to find rentals in Grants Pass. We all know how it's hard to find anywhere in Grants Pass to rent, business-wise or otherwise. I mean, it's a very locked and limited area, and to just say, oh, go move somewhere else when somebody's already invested so much money, time, and has already been a part of our community is short-sighted. And I'm kind of broken up about it because it's very sad to see. Opening a brew pub, would we be having the same argument if we were opening up, you know, a wine tasting bar and gift shop? I doubt it. You know, and it's just, and brew pubs, ask Bend, ask some very vital, lively communities across this country if, you know, brew pubs and business owners are making positive change, and they are. And I think we're doing a disservice by tying pornography together with an opening of a business. And I think the vast majority of us can responsibly have a beer and a meal together and meet our family and friends and do it responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
Good evening. I'm Alan Lawrence. I thank you for allowing me to speak. I would urge you to vote against the ordinance that would repeal the adult use rules. Repealing the adult use rules would pave the way for all sorts of sexually oriented businesses that I refer to as SOBs. SOBs adversely affect their surrounding communities, contributing to significant increases in crime, such as homicide, rape, assault, robbery, burglary, theft, and arson. Just a couple of examples of city studies that have been done. In Daytona Beach, Florida, there was a report that showed that SOB neighborhoods have 270% more crime than non-SOB neighborhoods. And a study of SOBs in Phoenix, Arizona, found that the number of sex crimes is 506% greater in neighborhoods containing sexually oriented business. A study in Dallas, Texas showed that SOBs drastically decreased property values. Property sales were $1.50 to $7 per square foot near an SOB compared to $10 or $12 a mile away from sexually oriented businesses. So I'm asking you, please do not repeal our current adult use rules. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Who's next?
Thank you for letting me speak. I just hope I don't embarrass myself.
Please tell us your name.
My name is Patrick Ryan. I live at 1025 Northwest Cook Avenue in Grants Pass with my wife, Beth. I just heard about this an hour ago. My understanding is you want to bring a very seedy business into your city. Fine. Birds of a feather flock together. Let me tell you my experience, and then I'll be brief. 20 years ago, I was an unarmed security guard, and I was watching a shopping center, and my supervisor said, whatever you do, don't mess with the hookers. And I saw them, they weren't dressed, they didn't have much clothes on, they were hookers. And I didn't. I stayed away because my supervisor said, the hookers have pimps, and pimps have guns. And that's all I have to say. So, are you inviting other seedy businesses? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Please come forward, and if there's anyone outside, they should come into the room as well.
Hi, my name is Nancy Reese, and I've lived in Grants Pass for 36 years.
Speak up. We have a couple people who are hard of hearing.
I've lived in Grants Pass for 36 years and have loved it here, raised my kids here, have grandkids now, and I want to know who would benefit from this ordinance change. I boycotted mud wrestling back in the 1990s and Larry Lacey's strip club in 2006. Why would we want to promote this anti-family depravity? We love our community and will do whatever it takes to preserve the integrity of our little town. I will fight this, and I will not give up. I protected my children, and I will protect the interests of my grandchildren as well. If we don't win this battle, we will find another place to live. It's sad that we are even having this discussion today.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else here for public comment tonight? Okay, thank you. We'll wait just a moment to see if there's anyone else. Hi, please come forward and tell us your name.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Weiss. Yes, Weiss is my last name, and I happen to own Weiss Brewing Company. That's been a huge misconception when I've been hearing out there is Weiss is getting thrown around. Yeah, it's my last name, so a little bit funny there. I'm just hearing a ton of misinformation on the ordinance. So I just want to clarify a lot of it. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be a family-friendly establishment that wants to have adults after 9 p.m. Because of how the city has this ordinance written, I can't do that. That's why this ordinance has to change. And last time when we were talking about this, that's why we have to repeal it, and if there needs to be something else done at a later time, we can do that. But right now, this is hindering my growth to stay in this community. And that's what is really upsetting. The other thing that makes me pretty upset is how this got taken off last minute. I get the legalities of it, but we had a bunch of people here earlier and we got turned away because it got pulled off. And as soon as there's a bunch more people out there that are here to repeal it, now it's to be brought up for public comment. I don't think that's very fair either. Everybody else here on the council already knows my story, so I'm not going to go back into that. If there's going to be a strip club that opens up in our town, there would already be one. It'd be on the outskirts of town. Simple as that. We are not doing that at all. We're trying to make a family-friendly establishment. On that note, until this gets back up to an actual vote, I'm going to leave it at that for right now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else here for public comment? All right, I think I'll just note, we did have a procedural technicality that we needed to pull this off the agenda tonight, and I moved public comment forward because I did understand that a number of people were here to speak on this issue and wanted to make sure that everybody had the opportunity to say their piece. The issue will be coming back up. So, everybody will have additional opportunities to provide public input and comment. And I think I will leave it at that for the moment. Karen, can you please review any emails?
We received an email regarding the B Street Jumps project, the $9.3 million COVID windfall. Do not eliminate the North Visitor Center, Cave Junction's homeless, help for the homeless camps and trash, 3 emails in response to the Grants Pass shelter announcement, and 1 listing just several concerns, including cleaning up the homelessness, reducing police budget, on the farmer's market, and then burn permits.
Thank you. And we received quite a large volume of emails today on the subject of adult use that have probably not been properly cataloged yet because they were coming in rapidly as we were entering the meeting. All right. Let's take a 5-minute recess and then we'll jump back into the normal schedule of the meeting here. Thank you all. Everybody, please find your seats. We're about to get started again. All right, we're going to come back from our break. We're going to jump back into the agenda with a legislative hearing, second reading on the scenic resources sections in Chapter 3. And Mark, do I need to read the admonishment on this for a second reading? Okay. In that case, who's going to talk on this one?
It's just pure, Mayor asking for a motion.
Okay. May I have a motion for a second reading? Valerie?
I make a motion for a second reading of the ordinance amending the scenic resources sections in Chapter 3 of the Comprehensive Community Development Plan.
Thank you. Is there a second?
By title only.
By title
perhaps.
only. Second reading.
Second reading by title only. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vanessa. Can we hear the second reading?
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending the scenic resources sections of Chapter 3 of the Grants Pass Comprehensive Community Development Plan.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote? I'm going to start with Valerie. Valerie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Abstain.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
No, as I stated before, it can impact commercial and private use. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Yes, as stated before, this is aspirational only.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-1. Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have a quasi-judicial hearing, 2 of them actually. So I have the admonishment to read for item D, I believe, right? At this time, I will open the public hearing to consider an application for an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan and zoning map for properties located at 1404 Flower Lane and 1389 Pansy Lane. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by a presentation by the applicant, statements by persons in favor of the application, statements by persons in opposition to the application, and an opportunity for additional comments by the applicant and staff. After that has occurred, the public comment portion will be closed and the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to hear this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? Are there any councilors who wish to disclose discussions, contacts, or other ex parte information they have received prior to this meeting regarding the application? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria which are set forth in the Development Code. All testimony which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. If you would like a copy of the report, please write that on a note to the city manager and one will be provided. It's important to remember that if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The hearing will now proceed with a report from staff. And welcome.
For the record, I'm Ryan Nolan. Thank you, Rick. A contract planner with Rogue Valley Council of Governments, and I provide assistance with planning activities. So as the mayor stated, what we're looking at is a request for a comprehensive plan map and zone map amendment for 2 properties at 1404 Flower Lane and 1389 Pansy Lane. So I'll briefly explain what the request is, talk a little bit about what a comprehensive plan map amendment and what a zone map amendment is, then review the criteria by which we judge an application, such as this, and then provide staff suggestions, and then the applicant will present. So a real brief discussion, what is a comprehensive plan? Some of you are new. Oregon has a set of statewide land use goals. 19 of those apply to us. Through our Grants Pass comprehensive plan, we've kind of decided how we're going to achieve those comprehensive plans. We look at things like housing, we look at things like the economy, we look at natural resources. And so then, in order to implement our comprehensive land use plan, we set aside zoning districts. So our comprehensive plan looks at how property will need to be used in the next 20 years, and then our current zoning implements those comprehensive plan policies. We're looking at 2 specific properties where the applicant is asking to change the comprehensive plan designation and the zoning. So here's an image. These are at the west end of the fairgrounds. There's a 0.53 acre lot at 1400 Flower Lane and 2.92 acre lot at 1389 Pansy Lane. Property to the west is residential. To the south and east, it's commercial, established fairgrounds property, and to the north, it's residential. Current access is off of Flower Lane and Pansy Lane, which are currently private streets. So this zoning map shows that they're really on the border of the commercial to the southeast and residential properties to the northwest. So the application is requesting that the comprehensive plan map designation change from low-density residential to commercial, and the associated zoning would change from R18 to general commercial. So if approved, this would be the new zoning map showing that those 2 properties are now in the commercial comprehensive plan designation and the general commercial zoning. So there are certain comprehensive plan policies we have to look at in order to consider a comprehensive map amendment. And then there are certain sections of our development code that we look at for zone map amendments. So we're specifically looking at comprehensive plan policy number 13.54 and the development code section 4.033 for the zone map amendment. And this is considered a quasi-judicial review as you're actually changing the comprehensive plan. So there is some associated development that's important to discuss. The applicant, the fairgrounds and Grants Pass Downs, have already obtained a major site plan approval pending this request for a comprehensive plan amendment, zone map amendment. And their approval allows them development of horse stalls, relocation of those horse stalls, parking lot construction, racetrack expansion, and private street improvement. So in this case, we know what they're planning and have approval to do if this comprehensive plan amendment and zone map amendment is approved. So this is a site plan that shows the properties. The larger property down on the right would be where the horse stalls would be relocated and where some of those hot walkers would be located to exercise the horses. The smaller lot to the north would be utilized in a later parking lot expansion development. So there's a larger layout that kind of shows potential future street plans. This is important in our adopted street plans. Both West Park Street and Allen Creek are expected to continue through these properties. So we have to look at our comprehensive plan and see, is this consistent with what we've said we're going to do with property? So element 4 talks about environment. Staff and the Planning Commission, who've also reviewed this and are providing a recommendation, believe that this is satisfied. Any noise-sensitive uses would be subject to review. And the general commercial zone requires mitigation for potential noise. We look at the element 8, economy. It's the city's plan to improve, expand, diversify, and stabilize the economic base of the community. The Planning Commission response is that this goal has been satisfied. And this comprehensive map amendment and zone change will allow an expanded development of the fairgrounds. Look at element 9, housing. There was some discussion on the Planning Commission. So we've clearly identified some housing deficiencies in the city. There's some information in the staff report related to that. We've done some detailed work on exactly how much housing we need to provide over the next 20 years. So there's some points that the staff and Planning Commission found would satisfy this element. So the subject sites are challenging at this time for further development due to both lacking public street frontage at this time. Currently, with the low-density residential zoning and the lack of street frontage, the potential for housing on these subject sites would be combined to allow a total of 6 dwellings. With the proposed map amendment, they could potentially, although at this time they're planned for the fairgrounds expansion, potentially allow multifamily development without density limitations. So it's important to realize that while the specific plan is not providing housing in this development proposal, the city is working on an urban growth boundary rezone, a zoning transition overlay rezone, and other efficiency measures which we believe will help us to provide the required housing over the next 20 years. When we look at element 10, public facilities and services. Public Works reviewed this application and provided comment that there'd be no negative impact due to the development or the change in zoning. We look at transportation, and there's a key issue that would state this is a satisfied issue. As part of the major site plan approval related to this development, the applicants agreed to a future right-of-way dedication agreement, which will allow the future extensions of Allen Creek Road and West Park Street, both of which are listed as priorities in our transportation system plan. And we have an element focused on land use. We've broken the city down into specific categories and areas. This specific site is between what we call the Redwood sub-area and the Redwood Circle area, and our comprehensive plan encourages further expansion of this boundary to the west and south, so that more commercial Redwood sub-area is planned to expand, which is what this would be doing. So then we look at the statewide goals, land use goals, and does this comply? So goal 2, land use, requires that we look at our comprehensive plan map and zone map amendment, and it's requiring a hearing by the Planning Commission, which has been held, and they've recommended that the City Council, at this hearing, consider approving the request. Again, we look at goal 10, statewide goals housing, and as we discussed, the city is going through ongoing processes and efforts to provide housing, and this is a small change, which would not necessarily mean that we're not considering housing. So the call to action for the Planning Commission has provided to the City Council is a recommendation to approve the comprehensive plan map amendment and zone map amendment application 402-00107-20. And with that, if there are any questions at this time, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Thank you. Questions? Brian, then Valerie.
Thank you, Ryan. My first question is, it looks like one tax lot is owned privately and one is owned by the county. Could you clarify which is which? I'm assuming the larger one is owned by the county.
I believe that's so. The larger lot with the horse stalls would be owned by Josephine County, and the smaller lot is owned by the racing. Is it the other way around? Okay, it's the other way around. The applicant can confirm that, but it's the other way around.
Okay, thank you.
Valerie?
Yeah, I was just going to just talk and clarify on the housing and the transportation part of it. So you're basically saying that down the road there is the possibility, because it is moving to general commercial, that at some point there would be the possibility, depending and down the road or whatever, with it being general commercial, it could be multifamily housing. Is that what you're
That's
saying?
correct. If your real goal, based on zoning, is to achieve more housing, you could achieve more housing in general commercial property than you could in R18 or R110 low-density property.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to
It's
clarify.
also important to realize that by considering housing, when you look at the application, it doesn't mean that this plan has to provide housing.
Right.
You have to identify that the city itself is working to identify and provide housing.
Right, and I just wanted a clarification on that, but thank you, I do understand that. And on the transportation part, the extension of Allen Creek is an important right-of-way, because that is something that we've looked at as a possibility with the Fourth Bridge, am I correct? And that is why, so that they're saying at this point in time, they recognize that they are willing to give right-of-way for those projects, am I correct? That are
That's
in the
correct. So in
transportation
order
line?
to receive approval for this development, they have agreed that when it's required by the city, that they will dedicate right-of-way for Allen Creek and for West Park Street.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Vanessa?
Thank you for your presentation. Under the element for environment, element 4, I'm seeing that while amending the land use designation, there's the potential for development to have greater impacts on the environmental quality of the area. Can you elaborate on that?
So on these specific properties, there is a riparian area, but that's really on a tax lot further to the east. So, can you state your question again, sir?
No problem. Under element 4 for environment, the sentence reads, while amending the land use designation would potentially allow development with greater impacts on the environmental quality of the area. My question is for you to elaborate on that, please.
Certainly. So in the low-density residential zone, you're limited in construction. You basically at this time can build one house and an accessory dwelling unit attached and an accessory dwelling unit detached. As general commercial property, you could potentially build across the entire property with some kind of commercial development. So in that aspect, there could be greater impact on the environment. There's no identified wetlands or riparian areas on either of these two tax lots. No real significant native vegetation. They've both been previously developed as residential properties in the past. So there is a potential for greater impact, but through review of any potential building in the future or any different kind of general commercial use, we could require buffers related to the residential property or noise buffers for vision or sound. So there are mechanisms in our major site plan or minor site plan review that could ameliorate any potential impacts on the environment. So I think we have given that consideration in our development code.
Thank you.
Rob?
So when you mentioned considering the environmental impacts, earlier you said that in the future, any noise issues could be mitigated, that would cause a problem in the neighborhood. I'm also considering potentially, artificial lighting late at night. If it's a parking lot, you could have very strong lighting and so forth. But my question would be is, obviously those could be taken care of in the future, but what would that require? I mean, is the neighborhood going to have to hire lawyers to make that happen? I mean, rather than ensuring up front that they can't possibly be a problem, I don't want to see those neighborhoods have to essentially pony up and pay big money to hire lawyers and so forth to just bring it back to what should be a nice residential area.
So a couple of examples of how our development code handles that. Certain uses, if they're adjacent to residential property, require a type 2 hearing where they have the public would have advance notice and opportunity to attend a hearing and potentially request additional buffers, etc. But if there were something like a parking lot on this property to the north, the parking lot requirement already provides that they have a landscape buffer between the parking lot and the neighboring residential property. We also have a requirement that lighting plans provide that no light is directed onto an adjacent residential property. So I think some of our basic design standards achieve those things. But again, if it's a very impactful use, we also have specific noise control for loud commercial noises, so the decibel level from a certain distance has to be approved. So I think the development code does have some triggers that would automatically require development to shield the residential property, not forcing them to hire an attorney or something.
Other questions? Rick?
Thank you, Brian. Can you go back to the slide that covered the dedication of additional right-of-way? So, yeah, that was it. So what mechanism, or is there a mechanism to preserve that area either through deed or easements, or how do you prevent permanent buildings from being built on that, since you said it would come in the future when it's needed?
So there is, I don't believe it's been finalized, but as a requirement of approval for the development of a future parking lot and approval for the location of the horse stalls, the applicant and the city agreed to a future right-of-way agreement, I think it's entitled. And so basically it's an agreement, a legally binding agreement that will be recorded with the property that says when the city receives funding, has a project in light, when the city says they need it, they can ask for that right-of-way. So I think with that, the applicants are designing the location of the building's infrastructure so that they would have a less of an impact on that property in the future. So I think they've redesigned where some of the buildings might be, but they can speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. At this time, would the applicant please come forward and make their presentation?
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Justin Gerlitz with Gerlitz Engineering Consultants, and I'm here tonight on behalf of TMB Racing and the Grants Pass Downs for the Pansy Lane Comprehensive Plan and Zone Map Amendment. I'm passing around a handout just so there's a lot of detail I didn't think would be clear on the screen, so hopefully this will help kind of clarify some of these surrounding zoning and uses and future right-of-ways. The property, tonight we have two properties. To clarify the one question from Councilor DeLagrange, the larger property is currently privately owned. The smaller one is owned by Josephine County. And the applicant has several leases with Josephine County that are pretty historic with the Grants Pass Downs and surrounding developments. Tonight, really, we're focusing on what we want to do for the phase one improvements. There's a second phase, which involves the smaller property. And because it is also zone residential and is going to be used for a parking area, staff had advised us it would probably be better to address both properties together in one application. So that's what we're doing this evening. Overall, there's been a tremendous amount of improvements at the Josephine County Fairgrounds, as I think most of you are aware. We've recently constructed the Dutchboro Soccer Complex. You can see here we're finishing off our last field and building a final storage building, so that's almost complete. There was a pedestrian tunnel built underneath the racetrack. The racetrack has been expanded and improved, both safety-wise. It's currently being lengthened, which is one of the primary reasons we need to relocate the horse stalls that you can see here in the photo. And then we've got the entertainment venue project that's being constructed in this area down here where the Grants Pass BMX track used to be, which is also being relocated to a new home in town. Kind of zooming in here, these aren't all the horse stalls that are up right now, but it's a good representation of where they're at. These long white roof buildings are the horse stalls. We've got some here. We've got some over here on this property. They have had them over here in the past. And right now, the track, due to their commitment to the Oregon Racing Association, is required to extend the racetrack in this area right here, which is causing us to reroute Pansy Lane and move the horse stalls across the way. So what we're asking for as part of this redevelopment on this site is really just relocating the existing horse stalls, 144 of them right now, and pushing them across the street. That's what this first phase represents. And that is in conjunction with realigning the racetrack and Pansy Lane on Flower Lane. These are just a few photos of what it looks like out there right now. So this is it's kind of confusing, the intersection of Pansy Lane and Pansy Lane. So this is the curved portion of Pansy Lane as it comes into the fairground. And then this is the old private portion of Pansy Lane. Looking towards, you can see the kind of edge of the horse stalls here. This is looking back towards Allen Creek, the corner of the main property. And then this is the main property where the horse stalls are going to be located, where they're proposed. As mentioned, there's no vegetation on the site at all. It used to have a house on it that was recently removed. And it's basically fairly level. And behind the property is Moore County property, and that's where Allen Creek exists. So this actually abuts Allen Creek, but not the actual property itself. This is looking down Pansy Lane towards the river. And this is looking back just to the west of that. This is an old house that the county, it's a condemned house. It's actually going to be the location of where Pansy Lane is going to be rerouted. So that house is going to get removed. And then this is the second lot, the smaller lot that sits behind what's currently the Aspire building. And it is also vacant and basically, other than this one tree, devoid of any vegetation. And this is looking down Flower Lane. This is a kind of a drone shot from the sky, again, kind of showing where things currently are located. So you've got the chute that's going to be extended here on the track, the small lot, the larger lot over here, and then the cluster of horse stalls that's going to be relocated over to this area. As mentioned, we went through a site plan review process, a type 2 hearing for this phase 1 proposal. It relocates the stalls, 144 of them, over to this property that we're talking about tonight. This is the rerouting of what Pansy Lane that sits right here is going to be rerouted around the track and into this area with some parking on that edge for people that are going to be using the stalls. This is just a little zoomed in version here. And then in the future, we're proposing a second phase. That's outlined in yellow here. The second phase will have a few more horse stalls, and then primarily it'll be an office and a barn, which is where the horses will come in when they're dropped off for check-in before they go into the stalls. And then up here on this edge in the future, the proposal is to have trailer drop-off area with some additional public parking and parking for the people that will use this area. This is just a general zoning map from the city's GIS system. Color-coded here, the R18 represents that low-density residential zone. The GC or red area is the general commercial. And then this one is an RTC3 zone. That's a special zone in the city. There's only 3 of them, and they're river tourist commercial, if I'm saying that right. And they're primarily supposed to be used for tourism-based activities. Think like a lodge. If the jet boat Hellgate was to relocate, these would be the properties they would relocate to. You could put hotels on them. They're a very flexible zone, but they are intended for that. So I'll kind of get into that in some more detail here in a minute. This is what it would look like if we change the 2 properties from the residential to the red general commercial zone. And then, one of the main things with any rezone is why. Why are we requesting a rezone of something that had a different zone? And I think the primary reason for this is, well, there's 2 reasons. One, it's located, this is part of the fairgrounds, even though one of these properties is private, it's used in conjunction with the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds, I'm also on the master plan team at the fairgrounds. They are looking to take down a lot of the stalls that they have currently kind of scattered on the northeast side of the track, keep some of them for the public use, and then this is kind of a relocation area for the stalls that are used for racing purposes. So this is something that the fairgrounds is also encouraging, just to condense everything right at the end of the track. So everything's kind of, horses can go to the stalls, they can come onto the track, they can train. It avoids a lot of cross traffic. The second and probably more important thing is just recently the city adopted the Transportation System Plan update. This plan identifies Allen Creek Road being extended to Lincoln Road across the river with a new bridge. And in addition to that, it also identifies West Park Street being extended from its current location, improved across Allen Creek, and then connected into Allen Creek Road extension. So those two components have a very significant impact on what we're going to be doing here today and in the future. And I know these plans, we don't have an exact identified time frame for these projects, but they are something that the city is really wanting to push here eventually to alleviate traffic across the river. In front of you, I've provided a couple of different exhibits, both kind of identifying what the zoning looks like in the area, and I tried to break that down a little bit further other than just colored zoning maps. This kind of reddish cross-hatched area that you can see here is basically Josephine County Fairgrounds. Those are properties that Josephine County Fairgrounds owns and operates. You can see here it carries over to this side as well. Josephine County Public Works has this chunk up here, which is, although not part of the fairgrounds, it physically is part of the fairgrounds and is being considered in the long-range master plans. The county actually owns that River Tourist commercial property that was purchased back from a private property owner, so that is also in their possession and being looked at for future community activities. And then you've got the area that we're dealing with over here, which is both public and private properties. Going to this zoomed in version, which is a lot easier to read the text, I really wanted to break down what this transportation improvement looks like and what it does to this area. Because when you look at the zoning map and it's just a big block of color, you say, oh, that looks like a pretty big piece of property, of residential land in that area. But what I did is I kind of went through and I said, all right, what is this going to look like once those roads are built? Most likely, based on what we've talked to the city about and what they have on their maps. So these dark black lines represent, this is West Park Street, 60 feet wide of right-of-way. This is Allen Creek Road at 72 feet wide of right-of-way. We, as mentioned, are going to be dedicating the upper, I think it's 30 feet of the property that's proposed for these horse stalls is going to be put into an easement or an agreement for future dedication, future construction. We are going to reroute or redo our plan so it avoids any permanent structures in that area. And then along the edge here, I'm assuming I can continue. Along the edge here on Allen Creek is basically going to go through and push through a whole run of.
Sorry, we have to stop you.
Oh, I've never had a timer on a presentation before. So.
Yeah. Did we tell him, what is it, 10 minutes? Okay. 10 minutes, so.
Okay.
But thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the application?
Do we have an opportunity to ask questions to the applicant, or is that at later?
I don't know, right now, Mark?
Yeah, whenever council sees fit, now is probably.
Okay, let's do it now. We'll ask questions. Does somebody have a question? Joel?
Good presentation. I had two questions. One is there's a bike trail that goes through there, and it looks like that's going to be unaffected. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're, as part of the current racetrack expansion, we're extending that as part of the racetrack, and then we're actually doing a sidewalk connection back down to Allen Creek, and then Pansy Lane is also being improved with a sidewalk as part of the entertainment venue project. So that's going to be a much improved connection from its current condition.
For the bicycles, okay.
Yes.
Second question I had was landscaping and trees. Do you have any special considerations for that as with your design and your engineering?
Yeah, we're going to be doing some landscaping around the perimeter of it to buffer that. At the end of the racetrack, there's going to be some landscape pockets. There's going to be some additional landscaping put along the fences that are going to be put in on the west and north side. And then on the east side, Allen Creek is a really thick vegetation over there. So that's going to be kind of remain untouched in its current form.
So within the interior of the parking lot or within the stalls, I'm sure it would probably detract from a couple of parking spaces or a couple of stalls. Well, you probably are not planning on any trees on the interior?
On the interior of the stalls, we're not planning on trees. We're going to cluster everything together in the inside and then buffer on the perimeter.
Brian, did you have a question? Brian?
Oh, yeah, thanks. So I think you very briefly mentioned that there's going to be some, I guess, combining of the horse stalls, so maybe they're all in that one area as opposed to kind of spread out. So I know that some are kind of over on the other side of the fairgrounds now, on the north side of the track. Are those going to be removed, or are those going to be remaining? And if they are going to be removed, is there plans for repurposing that part of the fairgrounds?
Yeah, there is. So right now, they're leasing some spaces in one of the barns, which is kind of a short-term lease. Because the program has expanded tremendously out there at the racetrack. We have a huge desire of people coming in for racing and training. And so those barns over there, the county does have long-range plans of repurposing those. Again, there's a master plan that's being completed right now, and that's been identified in there. So their goal is to kind of take the racing operations and the training that goes along with that, move everything over to this area. Again, even though it's private and public, part of this is actually leased public land. And then leave the necessary stalls in place for the public that uses, they use the arena and things that aren't related to racing, and then repurpose some of those other areas.
Okay, and then the other question I have is with relation to the larger tax lot. I see that it's less than 100 feet from Allen Creek, and I don't know how many horses are going to be accommodated on that tax lot, but is there any, or was there any consideration with regards to environmental as far as horse waste and being in proximity to the creek?
Yes, very specifically, the 144 stalls doesn't trigger any kind of higher level review, but what we are doing as part of our proposal is we're going to be doing vegetated bioswales on the site. We're going to do a septic type system to settle out any solids in there. So before any water is released into any kind of waterways or drainage piping, it'll basically be cleaned, it'll be filtered. The horse waste is dealt with. They have a very efficient system out there right now, where it's nothing stays longer than a day, I believe. So everything's removed, it's hauled off site, not stored there. They have very small bins in very small ways. So yes, it's going to be environmentally, we're going to make sure that it's very bulletproof when it comes to any discharges that might leave the property.
All right, thanks.
Valerie, then Vanessa?
All right, nice presentation, Justin. I just have a couple questions on this kind of gold remaining. Are those private that are going to be ultimately along the Allen Creek Road?
Yeah, so one of the things that this document represents is kind of what's left. So what's after everything is improved transportation system wise, this property's improved. You say, okay, what's actually left there? Versus the big yellow box that we kind of started out the presentation with, and so this shows that basically you're going to end up with a 2-acre parcel here, and you're going to end up with it's almost a 4-acre parcel, but this dashed line next to you represents where the edge of the bank is that goes into the river. So you're looking at about a 2.5-acre parcel of developable land here and a 2-acre parcel here. Okay. And, we really, looking at this both from today's perspective and then from a long-term fairgrounds management perspective, I really see this property here probably being rezoned eventually to become kind of completing the fairgrounds, because it really makes a block. If you look at the large exhibit, that's the block of the fairgrounds. And then with these major roadways here, this is an arterial and this is a collector. Those two road classifications don't allow people to back out of their driveways on those roads. You'd have to actually build secondary roads into here, which we don't have a lot of room for. I'd like to see that River Tourist commercial zoning extended across here, because I think that would make a really beautiful location for something that might be good for the community.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Vanessa?
Thank you for the presentation. There's included in our packet are some back and forth emails between Mr. Nolan, I believe yourself, and the city traffic engineer. There's one that states that the city traffic engineer is ultimately going to require a traffic impact analysis, but it doesn't say to which phase of the project, and there's kind of a back and forth discrepancy. Can you clarify that?
Sure. So phase 1, which again includes the relocation of the 144 stalls that are scattered over to the property, did not require a traffic study because basically the impacts haven't changed. It's the same amount of stalls, and so therefore it's on basically on the same property. It's right across the private street. For phase 2, which does have a small increase in stalls, and then it has an office and barn component, he requested that we do an additional traffic study for that phase. And that's why we haven't, that phase actually hasn't been approved yet. It's just here proposed in concept, just to make sure everybody has a good understanding of what the long-range goal is here.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had to cut you off earlier.
No, it's okay.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of the application? Does staff have any additional comments? Nope. Okay. The matter is now before the council for your consideration. Rick?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the comprehensive plan amendment and zoning map amendment for 1404 Flower Lane and 1389 Pansy Lane, as stated in the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Have it read by title only, is that correct?
Is this an ordinance, or it is first reading by title only?
Thank you, Rick. Is there a second? Valerie with the second. Any comments before we have that second reading? No? Brian?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment that I think that I have concerns that we are reducing our residential acreage inventory and using it, turning it into general commercial, when one of our biggest tasks as a city right now is to address the housing crisis. So I don't see that this plan has any sort of mitigation for the 3.5+ acres of residential land that is being lost. And so that's a concern for me.
Thank you. Maybe I was supposed to have the reading first. Is that? Mark's kind of looking at me.
Well, you mentioned second
I-
reading, but I didn't
I know. I
remember
looked
hearing
at
the
the
first, so
word and
that
I-
was why I gave the quick.
I'm sorry. I looked at the word and I read it instead of saying what I needed to say, but yes. All right, let's go ahead and have the reading.
We need to have the vote first.
Oh, vote on the motion? Okay. Do you have a comment on it before? Okay. We're ready to vote then? Okay. And it was Rick who made the motion, so we'll start here. Rick?
Yes.
Brian?
No.
Valerie?
Yes.
Vanessa?
No.
Kurt?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
All right, let's have that first reading.
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending the comprehensive plan and zoning map for properties located at 1404 Flower Lane and 1389 Pansy Lane.
Thank you. And is there a comment now? Brian?
Sure. I don't know if this was in the packet or not. I didn't see it, but I went back and looked at the minutes from the UAPC meeting, and just so everyone's clear, they did vote to approve it, but there was one commissioner that voted against based on the failure to meet criteria C of Comprehensive Plan Policy 13.5.4, specifically that the application did not adequately address Goal 10 housing related to statewide planning goals. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any additional comments? All right. Now I think, are we supposed to vote again? No?
No, it's
Done for
and then
tonight.
second reading will be at a future meeting.
Okay. Was not unanimous, so we'll vote again at a second, at another meeting. All right, next up, this one is listed as quasi-judicial, but the city attorney tells me that it's not really. The next item coming up for public hearing is a resolution revising Resolution number 217019 and adopting a new resolution for the request for proposals for public service grants for the CDBG 2021-22 Year 2 Annual Action Plan. And we have Brad Clark here to present.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So this one should sound fairly familiar to you. We're bringing this back to ask the council to look again at the community development block grant applications that were presented to you a few weeks ago. This process of doing a request for proposals for funding under the community development block grant last year was the first time. This year, you know, we kind of repeated a similar process, but there was, at the end of the council's vote, kind of some questions were kind of brought up to staff, and so the purpose of this presentation is just to kind of clarify why it's back again. You may be wondering since you just saw it. So I'm going to move through. There's quite a bit of words on some of these slides, which I won't read all of them because I think you're all pretty familiar with it. But the subject and summary is because of the March 17th council decision to review that. And there are several relationship to council goals just because the community development block grant program is addressing, and the applicants that are in the RFPs are addressing so many of these issues related to the economy and social services, et cetera. So that March 17th meeting, the decision was to award community development block grant funds for public services. As you recall, there were 6 applicants that came and presented to you. The decision was to award 2 of them $10,000, and then the balance, the other 4, we're going to get basically the equivalent, take the balance of that $55,000 or so and spread it amongst those other 4. So at issue is that the request for proposal itself specifically stated an approximation of $8,200 is what the city would have available as through our community development block grant funds. Again, we have to underscore that's an approximation. We don't know what exactly that money is going to be until Congress authorizes the money and we see it. So that was our estimate. 2 of those applicants did include above the $8,200 that was in the RFP. The others included the amount that was in the RFP. So I think what this slide is trying to get at is basically the applicants adhered to the specified dollar amount, but then, the 2 that were Hearts with a Mission and St. Vincent de Paul specifically had $10,000 in their application. The awarding a set dollar amount does restrict the city from adjusting the dollar amounts should we get a letter from HUD saying that we have less money. That's really kind of a protective clause, if you will, for us. So when a dollar amount is awarded, it requires the matter to come back before the council to change the award decision, adopt a new resolution. Last year, the scoring system, worked fairly well. There was a couple fewer applicants. The council at that point, ranked them, and at the end of the day, they used that scoring. We use that as a weighting mechanism, if you will, to sort of issue the money based on the outcome of the council's ranking. So having that scoring system and dividing the amount funded by the number is more flexible. It can be adjusted up or down. So as stated in the last bullet there, this matter is being brought back to council to ask for a revised decision to not award each applicant a set dollar amount, but rather to adopt a decision to divide the award equally amongst them all. This goes into some background about the amount of money that we have been issued. The 15% cap is a HUD requirement, so of all the money that the city receives as part of community development block grant, only 15% of that can be used for public service money, and that is the amount that we're talking about with these 6 applications being divided up. So if the council goes with what the staff revision is being recommended tonight, it would basically result in about $200 less to those two applicants, St. Vincent de Paul and Hearts with a Mission, than what they were approved at your March 17th meeting. It would result in the other four having a slight increase, meaning approximately $9,788 for all six. So the alternatives is to rescind your March 17 motion and basically have a new resolution that would have that money divided equally amongst all six. Or, of course, the option is to not revise and continue to move forward with the prior resolution that was adopted on March 17th. So, and there's a recommended motion there, or, as I mentioned, to keep the award. So, hopefully that kind of summarizes where we're at. Do you have any questions for staff?
Questions for staff? Brian?
I have a motion.
I'm ready for it.
I move to revise the council decision made at the March 17th, 2021 meeting and have the entire CD.
Sorry, Brian, they're saying public comment.
Never mind.
Is there anyone here for public comment on this issue? No, please resume.
I move to revise the council decision made at the March 17th, 2021 meeting and have the entire CDBG RFP available funds for public services grants for the city's 2021-2022 Year 2 AAP be divided equally among all six applicants.
Thank you. Second from Rick. And do we have comment? Nope. Okay. Ready to vote. And you're up, Brian.
Yes.
Valerie.
Yes.
Vanessa.
Yes.
Kurt.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
Rick.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to council action. We have a consideration of a resolution awarding Active Sports and Family Chiropractic LLC a system development charge matching grant of up to $25,000 for property located at 1529 Northeast F Street. And it looks like Susan Seawriter, our business advocate, is presenting.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. This is for Active Sports and Family Chiropractor LLC. It's an SDC matching grant incentive request. And, oh, I'm sorry. I could see the presentation. Thank you. And the owner of Active Sports and Family Chiropractor is on his way as we speak. I've been kind of messaging him, letting him know that there was all these public hearings. So he intends to be here. He's going to be here in just 5 minutes, and he'll answer any questions if you have any. So the resolution would provide an SDC matching grant up to $25,000 for sewer park, water, transportation, basically all the system development charges. That's what this grant incentive is for. And the relationship to council goals is to encourage economic opportunities by facilitating an environment to encourage business prosperity and economic opportunities. The intention of the matching grant is designed to help small businesses with 50 employees or less looking to relocate or expand their businesses. And the incentive program encourages retention and expansion of existing businesses by subsidizing some of the city charges, such as SDC charges. Conditions for the grant do require a match up to 50% and up to no more than $25,000. The funds are reimbursed to the business once all the requirements of the building have been met. So we do have a revenue source already in place, and it's an LB 6381. It's a commercial and nonprofit infrastructure incentive. This incentive has been going on for a very long time. We combined commercial, small business, and nonprofit incentive into one just LB project. LB stands for Land and Building Capital Projects. Currently, the balance in this fund is about $77,000. We've issued about 7 grants so far for this particular incentive. The current SDC estimate on this particular project is about $3,541, and so the matching grant would be $1,770, somewhere in that price, somewhere in that range. So the call to action is at the council's discretion, and there's a potential motion if you decide to move forward. And like I said, Bryce is supposed to be here any minute. So I didn't realize the last public hearing was going to go so fast. I was telling him he didn't have to come right away. So he is on his way in. And if you have any questions for me at this time.
Questions over here, Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Susan. I have 2 questions. I'm not sure who can answer the first one, but the LB 6381.
Yes.
Just curious what the funding mechanism is for that LB line, or what the revenue source is?
That's a good question, because it was 3 different LB projects, and it came from old CDBG funding that we got back. And so with those funds, we created 3 different projects, 3 different LBs, and they were slated like for small business, commercial, and then nonprofit. And then it was 2 years ago, almost 3 years now, all 3 of those funds got put into just one SDC incentive for all businesses, whether they were nonprofit, commercial, or small business.
So does that LB have an ongoing funding source, or is that
No,
it's discontinued?
this funding is, like I said, it's right now currently approximately unencumbered is about $77,000. And so this grant has been very successful, and it is getting to the point where more businesses are taking advantage of it. And the funds, it's a first come, first serve, and there will be a depletion of the funds eventually.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Valerie?
I do, but I don't know if it's relocating, and I was just,
Yes.
he's relocating over to the Parkway Village on
Yes.
that street. That is the address.
That is
So where is
correct.
he relocating from? Do you know his previous? Was that, because I didn't see it
I
in there.
believe it was in the background. Now, that's a question that the owner would.
I know, well, I knew.
He is,
It looks like 1524 Northeast F Street.
thank you. No, that's where he's moving.
He's going. That is
That's where he's
going.
moving.
Yeah, that's where he's
I
going.
think he's
but
on 6th Street. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I
I
don't
just- I
have
wasn't-
that
I just-
address. I
yeah.
believe he's on 6th Street right now.
Okay.
Any questions?
I can text him and ask him if he's on
Doesn't
his
really
way.
matter. I was just curious.
This has probably been the lowest amount for SDC charges for a business that's relocating and just asking for some small assistance. It's a small business, and it's just for SDC charges.
Okay, council, would you like to take a break, or are you ready to move on? Okay, go for it.
I move to approve the resolution awarding Active Sports and Family Chiropractic LLC the SDC matching incentive grant up to $25,000 to assist with SDC expenses. This approval will include an expiration date 1 year from the date of adoption of this resolution.
Are you calling for public comment again? Is there anyone here to speak on this issue? No. Thank you. Is there a second on the motion?
I think he's on his way in right
Joel?
now. Hi, Bryce.
Okay.
We're at the point where they're making a motion, so do you have any last things to say before the motion is carried on?
Does anyone have a question?
I don't have anything else to say, but if there's any questions, I can answer.
Okay. Does anyone have a question? Valerie?
The only question I had, which was where you're locating into Parkway, and your location has been, where were you previously?
We were over off of Williams Highway, near the Guild Building.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Okay, Rob?
So the dollar amount's pretty low that, you're seeking. Is that basically for increased use, or are you adding more plumbing fixtures and things like that?
I guess I don't understand the question necessarily.
Well, the grant is for an SDC, for system development charges. And so he's wondering why those are coming into play. Do you know?
Well, the building that we're moving into was the old Sears building, and so they have to retrofit each space to now accommodate a separate business, whereas previously it was just the Sears building. So that's why, yes, they had to do plumbing, and they have to do retrofitting for like the HVAC system, and then also electrical. Yeah.
Okay, let's get back onto the motion. So we had a motion to approve the SDC, and it was seconded by Joel. Thank you. Okay, council discussion on the motion? Nope. Ready to vote? Okay, Brian?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Motion carries, and you will receive your matching grant.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, we will move on to a similar item on the agenda, a resolution for Vice Brewing, requesting a system development charge matching grant as well, and Susan's going to be doing that presentation as well.
I'll get the slideshow up this time. Okay. Hello, Mayor and Council. This is a SDC matching grant, once again, for Vice Brewing Company, LLC. And that's the location where the proposed new location is going to be. It's on E Street, E and 6th. And the resolution would provide an SDC matching grant up to $25,000, again, for system development charges. The relationship to council goals is to encourage economic opportunities by facilitating an environment to encourage business prosperity, and economic opportunities. Again, the intention is for small businesses with 50 employees or less looking to relocate or expand their business, which this business is doing both. The incentive program encourages retention and expansion of existing businesses by subsidizing some of the city SDC charges. The condition for the grant does require a 50% match, and the total amount up to $25,000. The funds are reimbursed to the business once all the requirements of the building have been met. Again, the same revenue source is the commercial and nonprofit infrastructure incentive. I did bring the current balance down to $75,000 now because I was estimating the grant approval that you just did. So the current SDC estimate for this particular project is right around between $10,000 and $15,000, and it's based on installation of fixtures, floor drains, and sinks. And the final charges are going to be calculated at the time of the final building permit approval. So the matching grant request is estimated at this point of $7,500. So the call to action, again, is at council's discretion. We do have Sean Weiss here. I believe I saw him. And he has been here all night, so he is here to answer any of your questions. And then there's a potential motion on the slide. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question for Susan? No? Sean, would you like to come forward and speak to us about your proposal?
Sure.
Welcome back.
So the reason why I'm asking for this grant is I just need some help. This has been a pretty long, drawn-out process. So I just need some help, especially in these SDCs, because it's a lot of money for SDCs, and I just need something to help keep me in Grants Pass.
Does anyone have questions for Sean? Joel?
So I'm assuming that regardless of the previous outcome, this grant would be useful to you. Is that a good assumption?
Regardless of what previous?
Of the adult use ordinance, regardless of that, you can still be in business and we can help you.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you just briefly tell us what you have planned for that location?
So yeah, we're going to be a family-oriented restaurant is what we're going to be. We actually were just in a sneak preview for #1 restaurant in our area, so that was pretty big in my opinion. So we're having a bunch of arcades. We're going to stay open till 9 p.m., family-friendly. After 9 p.m., we just like to have adults only, and that's kind of where the adult ordinance issue is how poorly that ordinance is written, but that's a completely different subject. Yeah, we're just looking to be in a family-friendly tourist destination establishment in a building that's been vacant for 11 years right at the heart of our downtown. So that money would definitely go to other improvements on the building and help us just be able to keep this long process going.
Thank you. Any other questions? Rick?
I'd like to hear history. So how long have you been in the brewery business and how did you get into it? Just real brief.
Yeah. So I actually started brewing beer when I was 18 because you could buy all the ingredients and not need to be 21. So it was a pretty good workaround. Other than that, it's just been a lifelong hobby. I absolutely love making beer. We won People's Choice Award 2 years ago for Best Beer in Southern Oregon on our Audacious Apricot. So that was a pretty cool highlight of my career for sure. Other than that, Vice Brewing Company, LLC, has now been in business for 3 years total. And we've been growing ever since. It was unfortunate that we got evicted out of our last location due to COVID reasons. The landlord needed the building for themselves, and that kind of forced us into this expansion. So.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you, Sean.
Perfect, thank you.
Is anyone here from the public to speak on this issue? Nope. All right. Council, Rick.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution awarding Vice Brewing Company, LLC, the SDC, matching incentive grant up to $25,000 to assist with their SDC expenses. This approval will include an expiration date of 1 year from the date of adoption of the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Vanessa with the second. Any discussion? Rob?
Yeah, I'd just like to apologize to Sean for the inaccurate characterizations that somebody, and many people have really had implied, but even one person called your business a sleazy establishment earlier, and it really, you and I are basically just downtown business owners. I don't know you particularly well, you don't know me particularly well, but it really bothered me to hear that, because I know by everyone's reputation, everyone says that your reputation is anything but that, and it really bothered me to hear somebody say that based on misinformation. I'm sure that person never been in your place, and what seemed to get around about your goals in the last 24 hours or so is at best, partially accurate. So I want to really apologize. It really bothered me to hear someone say that about you.
Joel, then Brian?
Well, my position is I'm going to vote for it because I like the business. But I'd also encourage the owner to, I'm still opposed to repealing the adult ordinance. And I don't see those two positions as being incompatible. What I see is from 9 to 12, if the owner can serve some hot dogs and potato chips or whatever, and allow minors to be in there, that it would not be an adult business. Is that correct, Mark?
Incorrect, that's a misunderstanding. It's,
Okay.
I'm not really sure where that line is with OLCC, but there was a lady who gave public testimony, and she kind of had the same idea as what you just proffered, and you could serve hot dogs, you could probably serve foie gras until 2 in the morning, and OLCC is going to say no minors permitted after a certain time. So I don't think it's got anything to do with the resistance to serving food.
Okay, so how do you make those two compatible then without the add
Can we,
I'd be happy to talk to you about it at a different time. I think
Okay,
we've
but
got
that
a
is possible.
separate motion here.
yeah, let's try
The
to
owner can
focus
make
on
some
the
decisions
SDCs.
that make that possible.
Let's try to focus on the SDCs here. Brian?
So I'm going to focus on the SDCs. I know how we have this grant program structured right now. There's the framework that Susan has explained. Is it at council's discretion to potentially or theoretically award a higher than 50% award, just in theory, if council chooses to do so?
Yeah, you'd have to change the program before you did that. So we'd have to go through and take a look at an actual change to the program before you allowed that to happen, which would take another council action.
Thank you.
Comments, questions? All right, we have a motion on the table, ready to vote. Rick started it off, so
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Valerie,
Yes.
Vanessa,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
Unanimous. We will look forward to giving you that SDC matching grant, Sean. Next item on the agenda is a consideration of a resolution approving alcohol sales and consumption at Riverside Park for the Concerts in the Park season. Looks like we have our city manager, Aaron, presenting.
Yeah, also in the audience, Christy is here wearing the nice yellow shirt, and she can answer any questions after my presentation. So the chamber has requested a change in use for their concerts in the park. They're wanting to be able to sell alcoholic beverages, and this is your opportunity to consider that. The chamber is a nonprofit, and the way that they were looking at doing this is, you're all familiar with Concerts in the Park and how successful it is. Well, of course, they want to try to add to that success and provide another opportunity. And the chamber is a nonprofit, and they're looking at wanting to sell liquor at those events. The sales would go right back into the operations for future concerts, as they are a nonprofit. The chamber would not collect proceeds from alcohol sales in the first trial year. Some other event information that's in your packet that they have also is to ensure the consumption is properly managed. They would limit 3 drinks per customer. Serving size would be predetermined. No outside alcohol will be permitted. IDs will be verified, and patrons will be given an armband with 3 tabs. Public Safety, Concierge Home Business Watch, and Auxiliary have a safety plan in place, with all of those as being partners throughout this process. Patrons will be sold or able to consume alcohol within 150 feet of the, will not be able to consume alcohol within 150 feet of the spray park or playground. Event security will consist of the above listed entities which we mentioned, and the chamber staff will also be on site as alcohol monitors. So today it's scheduled for council action, which is April 7th. You can approve the request with modifications, or deny the requests. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Aaron? Brian?
Is approving this request going to have any additional resources required from public safety?
I'll have the chief answer that question through the conversations that they've had with the chamber in this request.
I'm going to say no, but I would anticipate anytime there's alcohol sold, if there's an overconsumption of said alcohol, we might be requested. But with Concerts in the Park, I don't anticipate that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Questions for Aaron, staff? Again, Brian?
Thanks. So there's the request for the alcohol sales and consumption, and then it looks like there's a secondary request kind of embedded in here for the city to waive the permit fees. I'm just making sure that there's two requests, correct?
The request, the waive the permit fees, I think is something standard that we do, and, but the alcohol request is definitely something that requires council action for your approval tonight.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Aaron? Christie, did you want to speak on this? Rob has a question.
So how much difference is the insurance that the chamber needs to have run these in the past compared to with alcohol? How much additional insurance are they requiring?
Yeah, they have to indemnify the city and add the city. So from an insurance standpoint, we're covered for that park use. Whether the alcohol, I don't think it really affects that.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, Christie, did you want to speak? Can you pull the mic down?
And you got to turn on too.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the insurance, we are requiring the alcohol vendors, which will only be 2, and it's going to be beer and wine. They're required to have their own liquor liability insurance and all full coverage, so that will offset our responsibility as well. We really feel confident. We've had a lot of discussion back and forth with our board, community members, volunteers, and as far as, you know, the people who come to concerts in the park. People are going to dinner, having drinks before they come to concerts, and really missing out on the opportunity to come down, have dinner, make it a family night. And by only allowing people 3 drinks, I think we can do it safely and still keep the integrity of the event. And that's it.
Thank you. Questions? Rob?
So I have a concern with the 3 per person. 3 is beyond what most drivers can handle and stay below, 0.08. It just seems like, quite frankly, for that type of event, for the time of day that it's held and so forth, and the fact that almost everybody's driving there, I think 3 drinks is too much.
Okay.
To go from basically 0 drinks to, which is what you've been doing, to 3, I just don't think that that's really a smart move for a lot of reasons.
The serving size is very small. Let's see, for wine, it would be 7 ounce. And working with Hummingbird Estate, they're very cool. They've got a great product. They have a can of wine that's very small. Wild River Brewing, they would serve small pours as well. So it'll be regulated, and we can adjust that to accommodate. There's no desire to have people intoxicated. We already know people are sneaking it in. Why not be able to make it an event where we can monitor that and not allow people to bring it in?
7 ounces makes me feel better about the 3 drinks. Thank you.
Sure.
I'll just note, according to the paperwork, it says the cup is 7 ounces and the pour is 5 to 6.
Correct.
Rick?
Thank you, Josie. So besides the wine and so forth, are you going to have any food trucks or any food available as well?
Absolutely. Concerts in the Park, we usually have, I think, at least 4 food vendors. And I think we're trying to bring in also a farm stand, and then we also have like popcorn and ice cream and different things like that. So yes, there's absolutely food on site. And that's, as OLCC, we're required to have that as well, just like any bar.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Questions? All right. Kirk?
I'm just saying, am I the only one that sees a little irony here? We talk about the adult business thing, and now we're talking about selling alcohol in the park.
We're trying to keep up with a lot of the wineries and different places. People are going to those places because they can take their kids. And we don't want to miss out on the opportunity to provide that option to our guests as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, I just had a question. Approximately how long is the event, hour-wise, and then is there like a hard stop time?
Sure. So Concerts in the Park starts at 6:30. We have the vendors available ready to start serving food at 5. So from 5 and our last songs at 8:15. We would stop serving alcohol at 8 o'clock. We have to be out of the park by 10 o'clock, if that kind of explains it.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Any further questions for Christy? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this issue? All right, council. Comments? Valerie?
Well, I personally would love to go down to concerts in the park and have a glass of wine. So, and I agree that people will bring it in anyway, so it's better to monitor it. I like the small pours because I think it's important, and stopping at 8 o'clock. But I'm going to move to approve the resolution allowing alcohol sales and consumption at Riverside Park for concerts in the park season and to waive permit fees.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Vanessa with the second. Discussion, council? All right, must be ready to vote. Valerie?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously, 7. Next up, we have a motion to consider approving the Washington Boulevard planting project of the Urban Tree Advisory Committee.
Hello, Mayor, Council. Thank you so much for having me. And my name is Tony Meekum. I'm the urban forester with community development and partially with Public Works as well. And I'm presenting on the Urban Tree Advisory Committee's project to replant some trees in the northern Washington Boulevard median island. The Urban Tree Advisory Committee approved a plan to remove the 5 declining cherry trees from one of the median islands and replace them with 6 black tupelos. The intent is to maximize benefits from the trees while ensuring that the tree species is appropriate for the site. Relationship to council goals: maintain, operate, and expand our infrastructure to meet community needs by enhancing our community's tree canopy. So for some background, in September of 2020, the committee requested staff support to evaluate the Washington Boulevard median islands for new trees to replace declining cherries. The committee, after reviewing my report, unanimously passed 2 motions to recommend the replacement of the northern median island, as we kind of identified as island number 1, up near Northwest Savage Street. Replace those cherries with 6 swamp white oaks. In December 2020, the committee's motions were presented to council. Council directed staff to survey neighbors for their preference between the swamp white oaks and black tupelos, which was another species considered by the Urban Tree Advisory Committee. City staff mailed surveys to 71 neighbors. The map is to the right, showing those neighbors in relation to Island 1. The survey received 19 responses. The results showed that 58% preferred black tupelos over swamp white oaks. In March of 2021, staff informed the committee of the neighborhood survey results. The committee moved unanimously to recommend the planting of black tupelos in the median island. The cost implications for this project is around $2,377, It's already been allocated in the tree refund program, project LB 5067. There's a breakdown of the costs. $950 was our lowest bid so far for the removals of those declining cherries. And then, of course, procuring the trees at about $200 per tree. And they're planted at a size that matches our development code requirements. And then a little added expense of putting in some plastic root barriers for the water main that goes down the center of the island. There's some mixed empirical evidence as to whether those work or not, but at that cost, using the best management practices seems well worth the investment. Again, the revenue source is already, the funds are available. This is a committee-generated motion that came up to council. And then we would rely on volunteers and park staff for planting, and then likely park staff for the maintenance of those trees. So the call to action is at council's discretion. And the alternatives: move to approve the planting project, do not approve the planting project, or move to additional workshop.
Thank you. Any questions for Tony? Brian?
Thanks, Tony. So the committee was going back and forth between those two varieties of trees, and I just wanted to verify that, of your professional opinion, the black tupelos would be appropriate for that location.
Yeah, the committee originally wanted the swamp white oaks, but council wanted to get the neighborhood input on that. So the committee had already looked at the black tupelos as an alternative, and that was part of my recommendation, were a list of species that work for that site. So yes, they do. They can grow well there.
Great, thank you.
Rick, then Joel?
Thank you, Tony. So I'm not familiar with the black tupelo. What does it look like during the spring and fall? Does it have flowers? Is it a tall tree, wide tree, and so forth? As I said, I don't know it.
Great question. So yeah, part of the reason, sorry, I'm just gonna get to, because I anticipated possibly this question. So comparing these two photos, on the left is the swamp white oak, and then on the right is in the fall, so it's a little misleading. We're kind of comparing them at their different seasons, but that bottom right image is the black tupelo. So one of the key features that the committee liked about actually both of these, but black tupelo kind of exhibits it a little bit more. It looks like red maples in the fall. And so they wanted to match that kind of look that in one of the islands already has. So yes, it has a brilliant red, orangish red color. And unlike the oaks, which have the male and female parts on the tree, it's called monoecious. The black tubelos are dioecious, so there are male trees and female trees. And we would source the male trees so that there wouldn't be any of the berries that are associated. Really the only kind of, I guess you could call it litter to it would be like any other tree, just leaves. And there are some good cultivars like Green Gable that actually is really beautiful dark green in the summer, and then they transition into this beautiful red color. And then another one called Wildfire. I wish that they had named it something else, but I guess because the tree looks like it's has the beauty of a fire without being on fire. But yeah, and so here's a comparison. The black tupelos will get up to, at least those two cultivars, will get up to 50 feet tall and 30 feet wide. And similar to the oaks, they are long-living species. And similar to the swamp white oaks, they're native to the United States. Not here on the West Coast, but they are native and do well in our climate.
Rick? Sorry, Joel.
So it just struck me, Tony, there's more than one of those islands that probably need some help. And the cost is pretty minimal for the council's efficiency. Would it be better for us just to look at the treatment of those other islands as well at this time?
I don't have an exact amount that I could present to you, but we did find in the tree committee that the islands other than that red maple island that we called Island 2, if I back out, they do have declining cherries throughout. And cherries, these ornamental cherries will usually live around 25 to 30 years, and we've reached that capacity. So, sorry, it's Island 2 has already been replanted about 15 years ago. So yeah, we will eventually reach a point where Island 3 and 4 will decline as they already have, and we'll start losing those trees. And this is Parks has jurisdiction over this property, and so there is interest to make sure to replant that, but I wish I had an overall dollar amount for you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you. Tony, is there anybody here from the audience to speak on this issue? All right, council. Discussion? Brian?
I kind of second Joel's idea about the other islands. I was already thinking about it before he brought it up, and just like as an efficiency thing and having them all planted at the same time just for uniformity. It might be good just to authorize it all now, and then staff can address it as they're able.
Additional comments? All right. Joel?
Well, if nobody objects to that, I'll make a motion to that extent. If there's any conversation with that, we need to hear it, and it would be a legitimate conversation, so don't hold back. Okay. Oh, where's my motion, Tony? Tony always bails me out.
There should be a motion in your packet
I
for
was
that
afraid you'd say
northern
that.
island.
Now I got to look it up. 365, okay. You know, when you get to be an old man, you got to put glasses on and everything else. Okay. Oop. That just disappeared. Hang on. My wife is home laughing at me. 365. Okay, I got it, Tony. I move to accept the Washington Boulevard Medium Planning Project of the Urban Tree Advisory Committee and expand it to all the needed islands where cherry trees are in decline.
Is that a second from Brian?
I second.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? All right. Joel, you're up. How do you vote?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Motion carries. Welcome to the black tupelo trees.
Thank you.
You know, a few months back, I looked up that song Tupelo Honey. I had no idea what Tupelo meant, the Van Morrison song, but now we will all know. All right, we are moving beyond public comment because we already dealt with that. Next up, we have the consent agenda. And I'm wondering if we have a volunteer from the council who would like to read it. Thank you so much, Valerie.
Okay, consent agenda. A, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for testing of single-family residential backflow assemblies. B, motion approving the minutes of the city council meeting of March 17th, 2021. C, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Park Advisory Committee meeting of February 11th, 2021. D, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Urban Area Planning Commission meeting of February 24th, 2021. E, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Urban Area Planning Commission meeting of March 10th, 2021. F, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Housing Advisory Committee meeting of January 21st, 2021. G, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Bikeways and Walkways Committee meeting of February 9th, 2021. H, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Historical Buildings and Sites Commission meeting of February 11th, 2021. And with that, I will make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? Brian with the second. And we have a question from Vanessa?
I have a statement. For the Parks Advisory Committee meeting minutes, February 11th, 2021, I'm showing within the minutes, Councilor De La Grange was present but not listed as a guest, so I believe a correction needs to be made on those minutes? Or is that an error? Is it supposed to be Councilor King as the liaison?
So Counselor King is the liaison, and Counselor De La Grange is welcome to come, and I don't know if it's a guest or whatever, but he's certainly willing to participate and is welcome.
Absolutely. Everyone is welcome to join public meetings. However, the
But
minutes should be accurate.
Counselor King is the liaison.
Okay.
And thank
So-
you, Vanessa.
So I guess what should be done is I should be added to the guests portion of the minutes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, do we need to make any sort
I
of
have a
amendment?
motion as amended. How's that? My
am-
motion as amended.
Make a motion to amend the minutes as stated.
Yeah. So in my motion, I make a motion to accept consent agendas with the amendments as given to the Parks Advisory Committee meeting.
Okay, adding Councilor De La Grange as a guest during that Parks meeting. And second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Valerie?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes, and a heck of a catch, Vanessa.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to matters from mayor, council, and staff, and a review of public comments. And I think I will start it off by noting it was kind of unusual tonight, what I did, allowing people to comment when we didn't have the public hearing, but I felt it was really important to allow people who had taken the time to come down here to speak to us, even though we will have additional public hearings on the subject. I hope in listening to the public feedback that we received today over email, phone calls in the audience, that we'll also go the extra step of considering how we might address the adult business use ordinance differently than the road that it was on to begin with. I know that I've personally spent a lot of time over the past few days thinking about whether I would need to break a tie or even potentially veto that particular ordinance. So I guess I'll put it out there that I am uncomfortable with the track that it was going on. I am no way uncomfortable with what Vice Brewing is proposing, or having an establishment like that that's a brew pub or tap room in our downtown. But I think that we have some wiggle room here to create an ordinance that will allow certain types of uses without opening the floodgates to all types of uses. And I think that for the sake of our community, we need to consider that. So with that said, I'll open it up to your reactions to public comment on, let's maybe keep it to this topic, and then if you have anything else to address on a different topic. Brian.
Yeah, I'll just second everything you just said. I think that it would be great if we can find a middle road, and I think that that's possible. I hope it doesn't take very long for us to do that, because I know in the past there have been businesses that have been deterred from opening downtown, and we have another one on the slate right now, and I would really hate for that to happen again. So I don't know what we can do to mitigate that, or to accelerate this, or to move it as fast as we can to get a solution that works for the whole community. But whatever we have to do that, I suggest we do.
Vanessa?
My question, Aaron, or anyone who can answer this, in response to a lot of the comments that we heard this evening about a potential nude dancing facility, it's my understanding at this time that a facility like that could operate and exist in the city outside of the adult use ordinance. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. I think that goes to show that that's not the discussion we're having with this adult use ordinance, of course, but also this does not prohibit that type of business from existing within our city. So I think that's important for people to know as well.
Rob?
Yeah, I completely agree with Vanessa on that. Even though they were such a giant number of emails, I think I probably read just about all of them that came in before 6. And many of them, the people were assuming right now that changing that ordinance would change that aspect and that nude dancing would be legal anywhere else in the city after we did that. They don't realize, I'm going to bet that 90% of the people that have commented so far are kind of basing part of their comments on erroneous information. They actually think that this ordinance currently is preventing nude dancing all over Grants Pass, which the fact is, if there was a market for it, it would already be here, in my opinion. So somehow to be able to get that information out, because right now people have completely misunderstanding of what repeal of this particular ordinance would do. In addition, a question for Mark. So other places in the city, what is the buffer between some of those, a daycare and a potential adult business?
You could go anywhere any other bar could go as the ordinance stands right now. So, you know, as I mentioned before at the workshop, you can't discriminate against that type of expressive activity, which is what the appellate courts in Oregon have deemed it to be. So it's treated, as far as where it could be cited, it's treated just like any other bar.
So what is that distance? How close could a daycare be to a bar if it was outside the central business district?
Unless there's a state statute on that, which I'd have to look up and get back to you on, there would be no other spatial requirement as far as distance from a daycare.
One of the people that called me today specifically was asking that question and had, I believe, a mistaken understanding of that as well. So that's really our responsibility as a council to somehow get the information out there, because so many people who wrote the emails, who called me, et cetera, really just don't really understand exactly what we were talking about tonight. The people who focused on the downtown understood it a little bit more, but even them not fully.
Okay, well, I think we do need to obviously move on with pursuing something regarding adult use. You know, there was kind of a weird technical issue tonight. Would you be supportive of putting it back on a workshop agenda?
So I think the question would be whether or not council would like to refer this to the UAPC.
Okay, or do a workshop. Okay, well, I'll ask that question and somebody can say how you feel. Would you be in favor of referring this to the UAPC, which is the technical issue that caused us to not have the hearing tonight? Or would you like to get this on a workshop for reconsideration like ASAP? And Valerie?
I guess I still have a question, because I didn't quite get, I guess I didn't get the technicality. So what you're saying is that this should have been in front of the urban area before it came to us, and we just found out about that today. Is that correct? I mean, can you clarify? Am I correct with that?
Yeah, that's correct. It should have gone to UAPC for recommendation. UAPC doesn't make a decision, but
Right.
there is an additional hearings process. And, you know, as I mentioned in the email to you, I had conflated the provisions in the code that allow the council to elevate types of levels of review, which in certain other types of review allows to skip the lower
Right.
review body. And so that was my bad, and I apologize for all the people coming out
Okay.
thinking they were going to bear witness to a decision on the matter tonight when they didn't. So better late than never. Caught that, and it was actually part of the reason I caught it was related to Councilor Daly Grange's question about elevating something else on Monday, and that got me looking at the code again in that particular area. And ultimately determined that this had to go the same path as the application that I advised Councilor De La Grange on.
And I just want clarification on that too, because I heard that as well. And so basically, if we elevate and jump above the UAPC, then it has to be appealed all the way up. Whereas if the UAPC, is that how it works, or is it just that's?
Well, so the way the code is set up, any development code text amendment, which this would be, requires a UAPC recommendation followed by an actual decision by council. Okay. So the UAPC never has decision-making authority, but only recommendation, advisory level authority on those. So any appeal from a council decision, there's no higher place to go within the city. So depending on what type of a decision it is, it would either go to circuit court or to LUBA.
Thank you.
Kurt?
So obviously, calling anything an adult business leads to a lot of interpretation. And the people tonight want to interpret it the worst way. So is the policy really the issue, or is it our definition of an adult business? And could we rewrite the definition to further exclude certain things and possibly allow others?
So the answer to that is no, because nude dancing is a form of expression. It constitutes speech in the eyes of Oregon appellate courts. And so you cannot write any sort of restrictions that carve out that form of expressive activity. So the reason this is drafted the way it is, it's evenly applied, and it's applied in a way that restricts businesses based on age of those who can enter, as opposed to restricting on what kind of conduct is occurring inside. If you restrict based on conduct, that's expression, it's speech, and you can't do that. So in order to prevent certain types of businesses, if that were the goal in the past, I wasn't there when they did this, then you have to cut a rather large swath in what is prohibited in those areas.
Brian, then Valerie, then Rob.
So I just have a question about what would be the result of a workshop compared as to what would be the result of sending it to UAPC. Would we be asking UAPC to figure out a solution, or are I'm not sure what the result of sending it to the UAPC would be.
I believe the UAPC would be considering the repealing the ordinance as, they'd basically be looking at the same information you had in your packet tonight. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, well, there's a number of ways to do it, but one way to do it would be to, the city is the applicant. So per the code, the city can initiate a code text amendment. And so for the city to be the applicant, then the council would be the one directing the city to make the application. So the application could be in the form of what was submitted tonight, go to UAPC. UAPC would come up with a recommendation. It could be, yeah, we think this is good. We don't like this, or we like this, but with some modifications, or maybe UAPC recommends something else entirely. I think that as far as being expedient, council ought to consider just referring it as is, because the UAPC at that point is free to make recommendations as far as how it should be. It's not, UAPC is not simply tied to a yes or no on this. UAPC could come up with something different, something better, some type
And
of
if
alternative.
council wanted to do something entirely different than what we see tonight or what UAPC recommended, would we need to send it back through UAPC?
No.
No.
No, you just have to go through the UAPC process.
So we could send something to UAPC and then simultaneously be working on a different idea, and it wouldn't conflict?
Technically, probably not. I think that would probably be a little bit against the spirit of the order of the process.
Okay. In that case, I think council needs to consider tonight sending this as is to UAPC with the expectation that they would recommend yes or no on this. Obviously, we can't decide for them, but if you are interested in considering something else, then I think we need to not send this to them, and we need to bring it back to ourselves through workshop or another business meeting. Hang on, Rick, because I had first Valerie and Rob, and then I'll add you, Rick. Valerie?
That's not exactly what I heard from Mark, and so I just want clarification, because it was my understanding that we could send it to UAPC, they could come up with their own recommendations and send it back to us with several choices or recommendations of what we might do, and then we could choose from that. Am I correct? Or no?
Well, UAPC could say, yes, we like this, no, we recommend no changes whatsoever. UAPC could take this, somehow modify it. Either way, whatever UAPC's recommendation is, that's forwarded to council. Council discusses that recommendation at a council meeting, at a meeting that council can approve whatever it wants.
Okay.
So the council is not constrained by whatever UAPC presents to it.
Okay, my question before that I was asking is when Mark Gatlin came in, he talked about a condition of variance or variance with additional conditions. Is that an option on something like this? So that every time they wanted to do something, they had to come before council for us to give a variance and add conditions?
Probably not. Variances are typically reserved for, when you can't comply with a code due to geographical constraints, such as you have your lot is bisected by a creek, so you can't have adequate setbacks, things like that. I don't think that you can get a variance for something that is otherwise not allowed in the code.
So how about where we are with the defining of the homeless situation, where we have all of those having to come to the level of the council? Is that not similar?
I'm not sure I understand that
Well,
question.
what I'm talking about is right now we're going back and redefining homeless, and at the end of each one of those, they all have to be brought forth to and through the council through the planning process. So I guess I'm saying, could you do something similar to that, to where anything has to be brought to the, I mean, isn't that kind of what we're doing? Because we're planning the level, the planning level that it is, that it has to be brought forth for.
Regardless of whether something has to be brought up to council, there would have to be something in the code that provides a mechanism for approval of a type of use. So I think what you're getting at is not so much a variance.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what it could be is a conditional use.
Yes.
If you're in certain zones.
Mm-hmm.
Variances are geographical constraints generally. Conditional uses usually have a standard, something like, you have to demonstrate that your proposed use is not going to have any greater deleterious effect on the surrounding area than a permitted use would ordinarily have.
Yes, that's what I was looking at, is that. Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, the concern I have about conditional use road is that it just, whether it's this council or future councils, it just lends itself to favoritism and lends itself to, there's just so many worms in that can. It just really concerns me. It would seem as though, from what Mark's saying, that if we were to send the existing ordinance to UAPC, whenever they're going to hear it, we basically can schedule a council workshop that would immediately follow that. They can send it back with ideas. They can send it back exactly the way it is. In the meantime, at that workshop, we can then discuss it, and it can be on our next meeting. That, to me, would seem to be the fastest way of sending it to them. And again, we get their expertise. In the meantime, we've scheduled our workshop, and we've also scheduled the next meeting on it. Just a thought for council.
That would be one appropriate way of doing it.
Okay. Back to Rick.
Got my mouth full. I just want to say I personally appreciate, Mayor, you adjusting the meeting for the public comment and taking those comments by people that were here for the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I would support the idea of just sending it to UAPC with the hopes that they can find a middle path. Yeah.
Vanessa?
I support Councilor Pell's idea. I'd like to move forward with that.
Okay. Any other comments? Shall we make a motion?
I'd just like to well, piggyback on Rick's. I think it was the right move, definitely, to allow people to speak tonight. They're already here. It was the right thing to do for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm just going to take a head count. Who's in favor of sending this forward to the UAPC with the idea that we will then get that through there as quickly as possible and then do a workshop, council workshop following up on their recommendation to decide what we want to do with this in the future. Valerie, would you support that?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes. Yes.
All right, it's a plan. Does anybody else have a comment on other public comment?
Oh, I
Not
did.
tonight,
Oh,
okay.
I did.
I do have.
I did.
Sorry.
Sorry.
How
Yes.
This happens all the time.
I know, sorry about that.
Valerie, then
I was-
Brian.
I just wanted to mention, Mike Pelfrey had come about the tourist office up on the top of the hill. And I actually did hear and talk with somebody from ODOT. And ODOT is working with the United States Forest Service right now. They are working to try to do something up in that area to clean it up, so they are aware of it up there, and they're doing what they can to change what's up there. So I do know that it is being addressed in some manner.
All right, let's note that that's homeless encampments on the hill and not a problem with an actual tourist office.
I was just joking as he presented it as as a homeless encampment up on the hill at exit 55.
Okay, Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the citizen that commented about the large conifer tree that was removed at the fairgrounds property. It seemed like they could have mitigated that, and it was a very large, mature redwood tree, and it's a shame that they cut it down.
I think Rick is making a motion to extend the meeting past 9.
I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock.
Thank you, Rick. Valerie with the second there. All in favor of continuing the meeting? Seeing all hands. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right. I think that was all of our public comment. We did receive some emails, obviously. I know I have some reading to catch up on later. Committee motions. Turning to the end here, we had the Committee on Public Art, COPA, had a motion to move forward with the Duck parking lot for the next call for artist. And a motion for council to approve the art rendering for the alley beautification project. And then the Parks Advisory Committee had a motion recommending council approve the Parks Advisory Committee's request to stay with the original choice of the 2 pickleball courts at Long Ridge Park. Yeah, Rick.
I have a question on Long Ridge Park on the alignment of the 2 pickleball courts. Why did the committee choose the one side by side rather than lengthwise? Because it seems like the pavement was already there.
Parks, Brian? Liaison, Joel?
So if I remember correctly, there was some green space that would be behind. The 2 trees that would be removed are somewhat defective. And the green space that would result from it, they thought would be worth that. And they'll also give the chairman will give a presentation and be here during that. And if there's additional information that I don't remember, she'll share it with us at that time. Brian, do you remember anything else in addition?
Yeah, I think the main reason is there's a large conifer at the south end there, and having the two
True.
up gave the root base for that tree more accessibility for permeability for rain.
So option 3 would affect that redwood tree down in the southwest or southwest corner. Southeast, southwest, whatever. But that, that big tree, it would affect the roots on that brick. And that's a healthy redwood tree.
Yeah, and I would just add that this has already been to the committee twice and to us once, and this is the second time we're hearing about it. So I'm just wondering, like it says on here, it's gonna get scheduled for another workshop. Does that mean it's gonna go to a workshop and then a business meeting? Because it just seems like a lot when Parks Committee has reaffirmed their recommendation at this point.
And it's probably ripe for a decision, so we didn't have to have a
Noted, that
workshop.
one is probably ready to move on to a business meeting. I guess I should just note back here on the COPA that the background information does say that staff will be preparing a call for artists for the committee regarding the Duck parking lot, and also that the COPA chair is going to be sharing the art renderings with the HBSC, the Historic Building and Sites Committee, at their next meeting, and that staff is scheduling a presentation for us in the future. So those things are coming down the pike.
Mayor, in the spirit of what Councilor De La Grange was saying, I'm not sure it would even require a business meeting to do the motion by the Parks Advisory Committee, because it's sort of considered a maintenance thing, even though we are changing tennis to pickleball. We've got resources associated with that. We would just want consensus or approval from council that that is the direction the council would like to go, and we could just continue to move forward with that. Or we could have a business meeting and have a resolution for you.
All right, is council ready to give that the approval tonight?
Well, as liaison for the Parks Committee, I'm okay with that, and I think the committee would be also, and I think it's also respectful of the council's time.
Okay. Joel's in favor of moving forward with that. I'm seeing a yes from Brian and Valerie and Rob and Vanessa and Kurt's nodding and Rick. We've all in favor of moving forward with option 2 on the pickleball courts. Housing Advisory Committee had a motion recommending that council recognize the top 10 priorities of the Housing Action Plan identified by the Housing Advisory Committee. Those are minimum density zones, develop a basic ADU/multiplex floor plans for public use, work with Josephine County to utilize their lands within the city, creation of affordable housing fund through various means, which include selling excess city property, CET, utilizing, I'm not sure what MB 102 is, allow social services in residential and commercial zones, increase maximum building height in higher density zones, quantify or map out buildable lands for infill or new edge development, dedicate short-term rental lodging tax to affordable housing, create/utilize multi-unit limited tax exemptions and tax incentives for low-income or high-density developments. And number 10, solicit all city staff's help, efforts, and ideas with the housing crisis. They would like us to review and provide direction on the attached priorities.
I just have a quick comment. I was at that committee meeting, and my notes on their entire list of recommendations and the top 10 that they picked in that meeting don't exactly match up with the top 10 that we have in our packet. So I would like those to just be gone over again before we see them at a workshop.
Okay. Well, I think with this whole subject there probably does deserve a workshop. Have them present their list and explain some of the ideas going on there. They also had a motion recommending adoption of a minimum density standard in the Grants Pass Development Code, which would be 60% maximum density in the R31 and R41 zoning districts. They would like us to review and provide direction on whether staff should draft a development code text amendment. And then they also had a motion recommending removing the Grants Pass Development Code standard of 1 attached and 1 detached ADU and allowing for any combination of 2 ADUs per lot. Same, they're recommending, they want us to review and provide direction on whether staff should develop that development code text amendment. So sounds like we have a big workshop on housing coming in the near future. Council liaison reports. Anything burning that wasn't covered there, Valerie?
I just have a short one on the Mid-Road Metropolitan Planning. They made a, what's it called, a TIP amendment, which is a transportation improvement plan for the 2021 through 2024. They're spending about $5.3 million doing 80 curb ramps in our metropolitan area. They're working really hard to bring themselves up. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, they were sued and they have to have so many curb ramps replaced by such a year. So they're ramping that up, and so there's going to be several of them are out on Highway 238 and Rogue River Highway. So they'll be working on those. They are also going to do a seismic retrofit, first of all, of I-5 bridges out by Valley of the Rogue State Park. And when they're done with those, I think the ones that are closer are coming our way. Will eventually be up by Hillcrest. So those are some things that are coming down that we discussed at the Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting. At that, we also kind of got an update that Allen Creek is in the design phase right now. So, so that's going to be coming to us in the next year. So that's kind of exciting. And in May, they are replacing the water line on Beacon, and shortly after the city replaces the water line on Beacon, the county will start working on upgrading Beacon for a short distance and putting sidewalks on one side. So that's kind of exciting. Then there was also some money that came down through transportation in December that they're discussing what to do with it. I think at this point they're just thinking about banking it and keeping it. It's about $800,000 so that we may use it for a larger matching for a big project in our area. So as we find out more about what's happening with the infrastructure bill that is currently working its way back in Washington, D.C. So I think that's what I went to recently. Once again, on Friday mornings, we have our destination marketing organization, and if there's anything you want me to talk about or bring to that meeting, you're welcome to email me, and we'll have that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Other reports? Not tonight. Okay. Mayor, council comments? I've said my piece tonight. Vanessa?
I have a few. I'll try to be brief. There's a couple openings available to the public. One is the DMO board. If you think that you may qualify to represent tourism in our community, don't hesitate to apply. Also, Bikeways and Walkways Committee also has one position open. The application deadline for that is April 9th. For the DMO board, it's April 16th. Wildfires are continuously happening already this year, so please just be cognizant of fire safety. There is a vaccine call center now open in the city of Grants Pass. Residents can call Monday through Fridays, English and Spanish options available if you have any questions about how to get a vaccine or what's available. And lastly, the public safety levy election is in 41 days. Councilor Lovelace and I are really ramping up our efforts on that. So if anyone listening would like to get involved and give us a hand to help get that passed, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, Brian?
I just noticed that we had a draft of the letter for project turnkey application on the dais, and so I was just wondering if we needed to do anything with that.
I think council has already approved sending the letter. If you have any comments, maybe just bring them to me or Aaron right after the meeting, and I haven't signed off on it yet. We could make little changes unless you have something you want to raise right now.
I think it looks great.
Okay. All right, staff. Nope, Rob?
After our workshop on Monday, I started thinking more about the Portland Lou thing, and I just want to put this out to council. If we really listen to just about anything that staff has told us, Laura Glover or Jason or anyone else, about the main problems they were having in the bathrooms, is that people bathing, people showering, people doing God knows what in those bathrooms. So to me, by putting the sink and so forth inside of the bathroom, I know at first I thought that would sound like a good idea on Monday, but it would really play right into what staff has been telling us is the biggest problem we have, is people spending too much time in there doing, household chores or whatever. So I would like the council maybe at some point to rethink whether or not we want to have those sinks inside there for that reason, because especially with one bathroom, one Portland Lou in the visitor center area, I don't even think that's going to be enough. But if you're going to tie it up potentially for people to stay in there for extended periods, I know that one bathroom at that visitor center won't be enough.
I would agree with that as well.
Good thought. Okay, other topics? Staff, do you have any comments?
I had two short items, and now I have a third. Councilor Pell, thank you for that feedback. We actually reached out to Portland Lou on the sink issue following our meeting. They actually do not offer a sink on the inside of the loo for that reason. They are all on the outside. They do offer the recessed version, which keeps it in tight so it doesn't protrude out from the Portland Lou. That was the option that you guys showed preference for. But just to your comment, it's not even an option to get it inside the loo. So two quick items following Councilor Lovelace. Thank you for bringing up the MPO issues and Beacon Drive. We actually have a planned outage on the water system up on Beacon Drive to be able to make a cutover on that water system ahead of that important work. We'll be actually coordinating with emergency management on this and sending out basically a reverse 911 notice, as well as putting door hangers on everybody's house up in the affected area. It will affect about 60 homes, I believe. It's a fairly extensive area that we have to take out of service as we realign a piece of the water system to be able to make that connection. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. We'll be putting door hangers out early next week, and then working with emergency management, they'll push that out via the reverse 911 right before the outage. So the other item is also related to the MPO and the upcoming transportation reauthorization bill. We have been asked to put in an earmark on the current transportation bill, which is roughly a $2 trillion bill. And the purpose of that earmark is to get funding to study what to do with the South Y. This is the biggest transportation issue that we have in the city, in the county. ODOT recognizes it, we all recognize it, none of us have the money to even start to look at it. We believe that applying for an earmark might be one way to jumpstart this process. We would like permission from the council to draft a letter for the mayor's signature in support of that earmark, and then to be able to turn that paperwork in early Wednesday. Unfortunately, I apologize for the late notice. We did not hear about this until early Monday. It came up last minute. Councilor Lovelace, Aaron and I and Wade sat in on a call with ODOT and Josephine County. We're making some headway on some interim solutions, but it really all boils down to coming back to that darn South Y, where we're at the intersection of 238. So with that, if you would like me to answer some questions, we would just like permission from you to generate a letter for the mayor's signature showing support for requesting that earmark at the federal level.
Brian?
So That's good to hear. Can we ask for more than one earmark, AKA Fourth Bridge?
So the problem with it, we don't actually have enough project to be able to ask for the fourth bridge in this go-around, because that, had we known more, we would have been farther ahead knowing this large transportation bill. That would have been the ask, and I think we would have stood a chance. So what we are now asking for is actually that seed money to get this project started, because the South Y, I think, is going to be more expensive than the fourth bridge.
Thank you.
Can we just add a little item to Monday's agenda to deal with this? Because I know I'm having a little bit of brain fry tonight.
You have to have the letter in by Wednesday, right?
Yeah, I could have a drafted letter for your review on Monday. That's really kind of what we're asking. If you're amenable to that, I will have a letter drafted for your review on Monday, and then if we could get approval, that would be amazing.
I think that would be great. If you could have a letter, and we'll just talk about it briefly on Monday, we can take care of it before Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from staff? Nope. Okay. In that case, I think it's time to adjourn. Brian?
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second? Valerie, thank you. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. 9:17, we're adjourned until next Monday at 11:45. Thank you.